Okay, guys, so we are live. So for those listening at home, welcome to the Dungeon Musings YouTube channel. My name is Kevin Madison, and I will be your friendly, well, not Dungeon Master, I'll be your friendly chronicler this evening. Because you see, tonight, we are carrying on with a final session of our annual gaming marathon, playing 6 More Vodka's very, very cool Degenesis role-playing game. And my apologies if you've been waiting to join us live. It's my birthday today. Partly I'm very old, so I needed to get myself up and ready to run a session, and also partly because I was just being distracted by other birthday stuff. So my apologies for the late start. But tonight, we have a full table of stars who are going to be joining us for part 3 of the In Thy Blood adventure that 6 More Vodka had published for this. So, guys, we've got more players who are joining us who have not played, well, some who have played Degenesis before, but not this particular adventure, and some who are completely unfamiliar with Degenesis in general. So, let's jump in first and say who you are. Some of you guys know who you're playing. If you do know, you can go ahead and give a little blurb about who your character is. If you don't, then we'll talk about that character in a moment. So, first up, I've got Arlen.
Hi, I'm Arlen. I'm playing Karina, who is an Anabaptist, and she's from the warrior side of that cult. And she has a giant two-handed sword to do warrior things with.
She does. All right. Next up is George.
Hey, I'm George. I am playing Sokari the Sickle, who is an African Anubian who is out with his Kopesh seeking to destroy the Psychonauts.
Nice. Next up is Jeffrey.
Everybody, I'm Jeff, and I'm playing Opiano the Battalion. He is sort of a medic type character and seeker.
Nice. Next up is Carl.
Hello, I'm Carl. I'm playing Atieno. I guess you told me he's a Scourge, but that's kind of all I know with him.
A Scourger.
He is also from a Scourger. He is also from Africa.
Yep. And like Sokari, he is employed by another one of the player characters. Next up is Brent.
Hey, I'm Brent, and I am playing. I blanked on my character's name already.
Interface. Interface.
Which is written right in front of me. There you go. He was sort of was a weird, kindly masked guy with a voice modulator, and his order
cult.
He is the keeper of knowledge, and are looked as scary monsters or even pseudo gods by some of the more primitive tribes, and they're all about technology and diplomacy.
Nice. And last but not least is Hobbs with his new sidekick.
Cleo and I here, we're co-playing Adewale, the Neo-Libyan, and the richest guy in the neighborhood.
Nice. So, the two players who are joining us with new pre-gens are Carl and Hobbs. So, I'm going to quickly talk a little bit about them. George got a chance to play Sakari before, but that was set in southern Franca, and it was a few weeks before this. Since that time, you guys have been separated. But Sokari and Hondo and Atiano are... Hondo is one of my favorite characters from the Clone Wars and the Rebel series. So my name's I'm gonna for sure fixate on that instead of your actual name.
Hondo the Atiano. No.
Yeah, exactly. So Atiano and Sakari are basically part of the retinue for Adewale. So I'm trying to give a bit of a nutshell version here. So Hobbs, you're not familiar with Degenesis at all, right?
Correct.
Okay, so broadly speaking, what this is a post-apocalyptic game, but it is a post-apocalyptic game that tries to do a couple of different things to set it apart from other games, other post-apocalyptic games. However, it maintains many of the tropes that you find in post-apocalyptic games, like overly religious, groups, like scientists or people with high technology trying to pass themselves off as more than just advanced technology, distortions of previous beliefs to manifest in very different groups. Those different types of things are And then the other thing is strange powers and unnatural creatures. Those are two things that are, with mutant animals and shit like that you see in most kind of 50s or 60s, atomic horror style, post-apocalyptic. That stuff is maintained in this game as well. The setting of the game is 500 years after the apocalypse. And the apocalypse itself, which is referred to as the Eschaton, was caused when several alien asteroids came smashing down onto the planet. Some actually made landfall in Europe. Some landed in the Pacific or the Atlantic Ocean, and others just sort of grazed an area and then landed somewhere in South America. So Africa did not see actual landfalls, but it saw the asteroids go over them and cause massive devastation. The Europe was completely transformed, as was the climate, by the impact of these asteroids. Setting aside the sort of civilization-ending event that would be caused by an asteroid strike, the added problem was the asteroids themselves contained something that has been come to be known as primer. And what it is basically aggressively terraforming alien DNA. And that transforms people, other life forms, and the very Earth itself. And when that spore or those alien parasites are allowed to spread or transform humans, it can, and spread in large formats, it can cause or allow them to manifest powers that violate the laws of nature. The game it takes itself quite seriously, in the sense that there's nothing silly in the game the way there is sometimes in some post-apocalyptic games, but all the tropes you would expect of like savage tribes, of broken down technology, of rival power groups and stuff like that, that's all present in the setting. I mentioned Africa was not hit by the asteroid. However, the spores left behind when one of the asteroids moved over it, left behind an alien bit of, it's not sure if it left behind this alien plant, or if it transformed the plant and then it spread. But there's this massive growth of plant life that's consumed much of Africa. That's called the rays. And like other kinds of alien things or alien plants or animals, they have completely alien biostructure or whatever. And the interaction of that stuff with human bodies can be very deadly. Like without being processed, it can be completely deadly. If you expose yourself to what they call the rays, it'll kill you in a span of a very short time. However, George's cult, the Anubians, have learned to use that stuff to transform themselves into living bioreactors, where they can transform it, and then their blood can actually be used for things like treating treating exposure to rays or other kinds of things. In the time after the initial Eschaton as well too, Africa actually fared a little better because they weren't the site of asteroids striking. They recovered a little better, or at least weathered it a little better than what, say, the Europe did, or particularly the coastal regions. In addition, it didn't hurt that a massive deployment of troops was located on the North African coast, which meant that a bunch of high-tech weaponry and access to oil or existing oil production would allow them to keep running many of the high technology things that were left behind. They also didn't see the atmospheric devastation that Europe did either. So this allowed them to weather things fairly well, up until the point when the people living in what's now known as Hispania, which used to be Spain and Portugal, they built a land bridge or a bridge to get over onto North Africa. They figured out that Africans had oil and then tried to take it from them. The Africans, being better organized and better armed, quite handily told them fuck no, pushed them back across the land bridge, and by the time of when we're starting our setting, they've taken over a good chunk of Hispania and are fighting an ongoing war with Europeans that are fighting there. They've also conducted sometimes trading, sometimes scavenging in the ruins of the old forts and whatnot, or old cities, technology and other things from the Mediterranean coast, and sometimes raiding for slaves. They have managed to maintain the highest level of technology and highest level of wealth outside, or pretty much of anywhere else in the world of Degenesis. The Neo-Libyans are a cult of merchants who basically run that stuff. There's a massive bank out of Tripoli that grants different sort of, I can't remember, commissions to go and undertake specific types of activities. Unsurprisingly, some of the Europeans have been less than pleased with this, from either being cheated by Africans or being taken by them as slaves. The Neo-Libyans are the wealthiest on the African continent, and they do have a hugely important place, but if you were to rank where they fit in terms of the locals, like who they defer to, they're actually, when they're on the African continent, they're below the Scourgers, like Atiano is, and they're below the Anubians. But both of them fit a kind of a slightly different role in society. The Scourgers are a full-on warrior cult that is dedicated to protecting, and they said that if Africa is the lion, they are the paws. So they are venerated as being, you can think of, if anything you could think of like the Spartans and in classic Greece, is very, very close to this. Your whole purpose is fighting in war, and everyone is there to support you with it when you're on the African continent. The Neo-Libyans pay your bills, but that's one way. That's the way the Neo-Libyans would describe it. The way that the Scourgers would describe it is, of course, you're paying for everything I need. The Anubians, on the other hand, are sort of the wise men, and they're the ones who understand making use of the rays, and they can use that stuff to do crazy things like bring people back from the dead, like transform them. So there's all sorts of crazy secrets. It's said they can see the future, they can speak to the ancestors, although the Scourgers believe that as well. The Neo-Libyans, on the other hand, are a little more pragmatic. However, when they are outside of Africa, the Neo-Libyans are the ones who are in charge. So Hobbs, your character is the one who has commissioned these other two guys, and what they're basically in service to you, and what your sort of goal has been here. The Neo-Libyans don't tend to get along with most of the people living in a region called Pergar, and Pergar is what was Italy at one point. One of the rival cults, the Anabaptists, are kind of like a modern day crusader cult, but also they've got a very strong like monastic or mystic tradition as well. They have a lot of temporal power in Pergar, and in particular in this city called Lucator, where they produce this very secretive and special oil that they use in their wars and in their mystic traditions, called the Elysium oils. That's of interest to you, Sakari, because the Elysian oils are very, very similar to something that the Anubians make called Marduk oil. And it's definitely more than a coincidence, so that will be of interest for you. The Anabaptists also, half of the cult is a religious warrior cult, so there's something to be of interest for you, Atiano, but really your job is you're the lion's paw. You're here to protect Adewale and to keep him safe, if need be, or undertake whatever tasks he needs you to take that will advance the interest. Adewale, what you want to do is put a good face on it. There's no Africans who have any presence in Lucator, but Lucator is a lucrative. If you could break into that kind of trading and somehow get the Anabaptists on, to agree to having a trade emporium here or something like that, that would be a huge coup for you. You may notice as well, too, each of your characters, for George, you've heard this spiel before, but Carl and Hobbs, each of your characters is made up of three different things: the culture, their cult, and your concept. Each of you guys has a different concept, which is sort of, it's a archetypical kind of personality type for them. And what I've tried to do is go a little outside of the expected from it. So like, Atiano, I think yours is the abomination. and Hobbs, I think yours is the Visionary. So, and the reason that I point those out is because when you spend your ego points, which is the kind of narrative metacurrency that they've got in this game, it's also your like mental or emotional hit points. That's how, if you roleplay that up, then once a day you'll get an extra point of ego back, in addition to the one that you would normally get from sleeping. What else do you need to know here? You've been held up in arriving in Lugator. You made contact with a Spitalian named Ulpiano, who had been tasked. He'd been working with this judge in this region called Borca to kind of investigate this drug smuggling. There's a drug in the setting called Burn, and that's made from the spores that have grown out of or near the craters where the asteroids fell. And it seemed that this Burn smuggling route, it led all the way down to Lucator. So this, once you found out about this Adewale, you sort of concocted this, oh, wait a minute, this would be a really good reason to, if I can put an end to a drug smuggling thing in Lucator, this is my way in. So you threw your lot in and agreed to help the guys with their investigation. You unfortunately have had other things that have held you up in the trip down here, so that's why you guys are arriving a few days after when everyone else has arrived. And where is it? Oh, got it. Great. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4. The 4 days that you've arrived afterwards. And I did not have time to load a picture of something, but I'm going to hold it up to the camera in a moment, guys. But they're vehicles, the ambient technology level in here, it usually, on average, will oscillate between about late medieval to, like, say, 16th century level of technology. That's what you're finding in the average clan. There's also Stone Age clans. There's also very backwards clans. There's also ones that's for some quirk of history or fluke of the Eschaton have incredible high technology. Some may understand it, some may not. But that's who you've been traveling with, is Ulpiano the Spitalian, a judge named Eckhart, who is not here tonight. So he's also been held up by something, probably because the judges don't have any legal jurisdiction in this region. So he may have been held back by the Pergarans saying fuck off. But I'm thinking that what I'll say is that you guys have basically been rushing down here since. And you've been rushing down in a vehicle. Now, let me show you a picture of this. It's basically like kind of a post-apocalyptic dune buggy kind of thing. And it's what Scourgers will have bought for them by their Neo-Libyan benefactors if they're really nice. And what you guys have been doing is traveling down from basically the Alps to Lucator, which is in northern Pergar, to try and meet up with everyone and find out what the hell's, find out how you can help with this investigation. And I think probably at this point, Adewale, you're really hoping that you're not too late for this. Because, if you blew the opportunity to try and make a good impression here, it's going to be tricky because the people in Pergar really don't care for Africans in general. And you are right in the middle of a very, very religious part of Pergar. And you don't want them to think like, oh shit, you are agents of the Demiurge, we should kill you. This here, guys, that's what you're going to be traveling through the roads of northern Pergar in.
Cool.
And it is very, very unusual to have that. What is it called here? It is called a... Oh yeah, and Atiano, you can refer a big part of the beliefs of the Scourgers is basically that the white men from their first contact with Africa have done nothing but take people, resources, stability of things. They are a very ethnically focused warrior cult, and they refer to Europeans as the Crow or the Crows. So you can feel free to incorporate that in. You aren't a lunatic who's going to fight combat in this, and the the general gameplay in this, guys, is it's going to feel very much more. It's going to feel a bit like the sort of some of the story games or the more looser story games like Fantasy Flight Star Wars that we've played, or like some of the Conan games, without the swinginess. But the combat is closer to like Traveler or some of the more grounded things. This is not. It's a science fiction game that has a lot of post-apocalyptic elements. It is not a fantasy game that has post-apocalyptic elements. That means those of you who are badass warriors, like Karina, like Atiano, like Sakari, you're gonna feel like that at the table. But it also means that those of you who are not, you got to be careful. You need to be fighting smart. Adewalda, you have the benefit of carrying with you. You're not completely incapable. You are much more of the chatty type than you are the fighty type. But we played a little more than 11 hours on Saturday, and we didn't roll a single combat. Like, no one swung a weapon, no one did whatever. It was the game is. We can talk. I don't want to get lost in my early assessment, but like it's a really the combination of the loose skill, like the loose skills and the fast playing system and the really interesting setting makes for really lots of material to sink your teeth into for role playing. So. And even if you're playing a warrior character, you still get a chance to lots of opportunity to get some RP in too. So
I would even say, having played once, that it's best to try to deal with situations that avoid combat. Now, my character is not going to want to do that. I'm just letting you know from experience of the system that I almost got murdered like instantaneously.
Yeah. So did Steve's character too.
It's more like the real world. People aren't going to put themselves in harm's way if they can help it.
Exactly, and that's what
there is a fear of mortality, I guess.
Totally. And that's where I feel like it's much more of it's a science fiction game in the sense that it's about the characters and it's about their beliefs and interaction, how that bumps up with the other characters' beliefs and the beliefs of the world and whatnot and pursuing their goals. That's what the game is kind of about, more so than, trying to get more levels or whatever. So, anyway, that is where we are. And what I'm not going to go more into detail because it was better to sort of like learn the world as we go. If you guys have questions as we go along, let me know. And I'll try and give you context for, like if you've got a decision before you, I can give you context as to what your character would understand about that. But let's go and pick up for where we left things off. So, I think what we're going to do is, so the African contingent in the group, you guys are going to be just holding off for just a little bit here. And then we'll have your characters arrive in a moment. So let's go back to where we were, guys. And let me see here. I think we were on the map of Lucator here.
Or we couldn't.
Or we couldn't, yeah.
Yeah.
So the broad strokes of what's brought us here. In the span of 3 days, our heroes have seen a great deal of things happen in Lucator. First, the three heroes that we haven't talked about today are Karina the Anabaptist, who is a orgiastic. She's basically part of the warrior branch of the Anabaptist cult. She was seconded to keep another guy from Pergar, a Spitalian named Ulpiano. And the Spitalians are an organization that they are the kind of scholar surgeons. They have maintained the medical knowledge of the bygone age by keeping a kind of a cult focused around a medical center that survived the Eschaton and have spread out since then. They're also part of the vanguard using science to fight the spread of the spore. There are whole swaths of countryside that are lost to the spore or to the psychonauts, the Homo Degenesis, the modified and mutated humans who have been reshaped by this alien primer. The Spitalians take up arms against that, which makes them kind of, albeit different in faith, they're erstwhile allies to the Anabaptists, who also take up arms against the Scourge, or the not Scourge, the Barons and the Seconds. Ulpiano, along the way, met up with a chronicler named Interface. And the chroniclers are exactly like what Brent said. They're the personification of the Asimovian kind of, sufficiently advanced science is indistinguishable from magic. The backstory for them is they're a bunch of hackers who sort of survived the Eschaton, and then once they realized that reasoning with the people who had survived was not going to work, they built themselves up as this sort of like mystic, trappings hidden underneath technology. They all wear suits. They all make use of crazy advanced technology that's sort of dressed up to look like magic or look like some kind of supernatural ability. They're also the probably the most educated in terms of what the bygone world and its relics was like, and how to sort of restore that technology. They also have the best way of communicating over long distances. However, they are not really present in Purgar, so there may be some ulterior motive for him being here. But after the guys arrived in Purgar, I've been talking quite a bit. Do one of you guys, Arlen, Brent, or Jeff, you want to give us a quick overview of what happened after you guys arrived in Purgar?
Sure.
I can use visual aids as you're going through, too.
Yeah. So we arrived, and right when we got here, we were just starting to figure out how we were going to find this smuggler character. We tried to stay at the Bleeding Ram, but it was full. And so we were forced to go to the Alms House, which is sort of like the free place of the church. And this was Ulpiano and Interface, as Karina was also delayed. And then when we arrived at the Alms House, we were told by the... I don't have the family name written down. Yeah.
Benesato. House Benesato.
Benesato. House Benesato. They kind of run the city. And they showed up and told us that we had to move because there was some flayers, which is a different religious group, coming, and they were going to be staying at the Alms House. And so we had to move to the Commission House, which is actually sort of the nicer place that the Anabaptists run. And so we went and stayed there. And we met Donna, who runs the place. Very nice and helpful Anabaptist lady. And she welcomed us in there, and that's where we've been staying. And then we went to bed, and in the morning we were awakened by the bell ringing in the city. And when we entered the city to find out what happened, we found out that Altair, who was the leader of the Anabaptists in this region, had been murdered. And while we were trying to investigate, the crowd kind of turned on us because both Ulpiano and Interface are very much outsiders, and a woman started, calling us the murderers and whatnot, and the crowd was turning, so we kind of had to flee. And we went and hid at the Common House, or the Commission House. Then we were kind of, this guy, what's his name? Luciano Bastardo, who was the bastard son of Altair.
Adopted son.
Oh, adopted son.
Yeah.
Oh, he's not, okay, I thought he was he's not actually his bastard.
No, he's adopted, but he is a bastard, which is why has the...
Got that name.
Sobriquet, yeah, Bastardo.
Yeah, Bastardo. He came, we saw him downtown, but he didn't really do much to us. Then he showed us. And his questioning of us was...
Oh, do we...
Son of a gun, right when it was getting good.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll be back in a sec, heroes. Brent, actually neither Brent nor Arlen were there for that session, so...
Wasn't
We'll give him a sec here,
even
I'm sure.
trying.
Oh, sorry, Jeff, we lost you for a minute there.
after you introduce the Bastardo, we
Yeah.
lost you.
Oh, Jeff, can you hear us? Hello, hello. Let's see. He's frozen in the Hangout as well too. So what I'll do is I will carry on. Oh, what does he say? Oh, thanks. Thank you.
Froze?
Yeah, you froze up there for a minute there, Jeff. Can you hear us now? You may have been able to hear us the whole time. So,
I see Jeff again.
oh, you see Jeff again? You can hear us. Okay, so give us a sec here.
I can hear you guys the whole time. Can you hear me yet?
Oh, we can hear you again now. Yeah,
Now we can,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, crazy. I can hear you guys the whole time.
Okay.
So right after you introduced the Bastardo, we lost you.
Yeah, so he showed up at the commission house and kind of barged his way in there and started interrogating us. But his interrogation seemed sort of flimsy, and we were kind of alerted that it seemed as though he wasn't searching too hard for the murderer. And then we decided that because my mentor, Carmino Ferro, was sort of best friends with Altair, that it fell on me as the battalion here to take up the investigation that the battalions would have done into the murder. And because we had no access to the body, first we found out that they were burying him up at the cemetery. So we got some robes from the city to look like the Anabaptist general public, and we went up to the grave to see what was going on. And we met... I didn't write the preacher's name down. It's Abacus, the aesthetic, who sort of leads the other side of the Anabaptist religion in this area. Is that correct, Kev?
Yeah, there's the ascetics and there's the orgiastics. The orgiastics are the armed and militaristic types, and the ascetics are the more contemplative, mystic, and also the ones behind crafting the Elysium oils and maintaining the aqueducts and so forth. The guys also heard, Interface and Ulpiano heard some rumors on the trip down that were at odds with each other. One said that the ascetics are the ones who run the cloister, the cloister of Lucator, and then others heard that it's actually the cloister of Lucator is a training ground for orgiastic soldiers who are marched off to this 100-year war that the Anabaptists have been waging or defending against, depending who you ask, against another cult called the Jahamadans.
Yeah. So we showed up there, and he made a bunch of proclamations about the city's on lockdown. Nobody can go to the what are they called? Cathedrals?
Cloister.
The cloisters? Is that what they call their temples?
Yes, the cloister.
The cloister, and nobody could leave the city, which kind of made sense since there was a murderer about. But also, like, all the main people involved, none of them would be available, and no preaching in the streets, and basically a whole bunch of rules. And so we were again suspicious of that. And when we had spoken to Donna about the rituals of the people, we found out that there should be a big sort of funeral for him, and lots of opportunity for people to travel from around the area to come and sort of say their farewell to Altair. And so when we found out that they had quickly buried him, that was very suspicious. And they hadn't waited for the battalions to come and do sort of medical autopsy to see if we could help them pinpoint the killer. So Ulpiano and Interface made a plan to steal some shovels and sneak back to the cemetery at night and dig up the body of Altair. And Ulpiano was going to perform the medical autopsy himself.
It only took us about 5 hours to get to grave robbing, so...
Yeah. Hey, we weren't stealing the grave. We were doing an important work. But when we got there and started to dig up the grave, we had found that they had placed a extremely giant boulder, something that would have required like 10 oxen to move, under the grave. So either he's not really in the grave, which we do think he is in there, but they've used it to destroy the body, and there is no evidence of what's happened. Oh, and sorry, I missed a step. Back, we thought he was murdered at the water towers, which have also been locked down since the incident. Then we left there. While we were there, we found out that there was another. What's the cult of interface?
Chronicler.
Called? The Chroniclers. That there was another Chronicler here in the city, and so the next day we decided we would go try and find this Chronicler. So we headed back to the cemetery where we had seen him, or Piano had seen his flying machine and his orange eyes. And when we followed a trail into the woods, we didn't find the Chronicler. Instead, we found John the Black.
You found
No, Black Tom.
Tomero, who also goes by Black Tom.
Yeah, Black Tom. Living in a cave up in the mountains. And he told us a story of what's the other group? What's their name?
Which the Romanos?
Oh, the Romanos.
Yeah.
That there was a bunch of Romanos who had camped up in the hills, and he was here to take revenge on one of them named Papa, who had kidnapped him or whatever and held him as a slave when he was a child, and now he was here to get revenge on him. And so we came back to town and we discussed what to do, and Karina ended up alerting the Anabaptists that both there was Romanos around and that Black Tom was around. And so we felt important to head back and warn Black Tom. And when we did, we decided to go check out this camp. And when we arrived at the camp, we were surprised to see the Anabaptists there, including a horse that we knew to belong to Luciano. And so we crept closer and we saw one more name I don't know.
You saw this. On
the meeting.
Left there is Papa Chico, the head of the Romanos, or at least this band of the Romanos. And the woman there is Emissary Neva, also known as the Iron Emissary, the wife of the murdered Baptist, Altair. So to add a couple other things of context in here. Actually, first off, Arlen. Yeah, sure. Arlen or Brent, do you guys have anything to add to Jeff's recounting?
I think Jeff did a really good job including everything.
When did Arlen's character join? I missed that.
Oh, you're muted.
I'm muted on.
Oh, Karina showed up. Before we went to the cemetery the second time to look for the second Chronicler, is when Karina came back. Or arrived, I should say.
Oh, Arlen, you're still muted.
Yeah.
We've lost it.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I was muted. No, I also, so in addition to telling the Anabaptists about the Romanos and Black Tom, I also mentioned that there may be a chronicler lurking somewhere around, so they know about that too. Or at least some of them do.
Right.
Jeff, would you mind hitting reconnect on the cog? I've
Sure.
lost your camera before, and
Yeah, me too.
okay.
Oh, and also one more detail that you learned when you spoke to the Anabaptists was that you learned that it was Neva had told the greater church that they didn't need any help solving the murder.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
and
We'd learned that before we had arrived at the.
and tried to talk to Abacus
What?
and didn't get in to see him. That was before we went to see.
Oh yeah, he
Black
told
on
us
the
to
second
bug
time.
off. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was not well received. So the only things I'll add, guys, you did do a really, really good job of covering. I'll give a couple more things that I just think are key to kind of understanding what's the backdrop here. So Lucator is right here, guys. It is in the heart of Anabaptist country. As Jeff said, Lucator is also run by one of the Pergaran clans called House Benesato. House Benesato has ruled here for hundreds of years, and they were early converts to Anabaptists, to the point where House Benesato and Anabaptists are kind of coterminous. Like if you're dealing with someone from House Benesato, they're part of the Anabaptist faith, which is not unusual in this whole region. The Baptist who died was a very, very well-known war hero, very well liked, and under his supervision, Lucator, as a source, a very, very important source of the Elysium oils, has become incredibly rich and influential. His wife was younger than him, but she and him met on the battlefield of the Adriatic Wars against the Jehammedans, and they were sort of celebrated as a ideal couple. Neva being the so important that he actually, the Baptist placed her in charge of effectively most of Lucator, the temporal doings in Lucator, including the town watch, which Luciano Bastardo runs. However, House Benesato has another elder scion who is Ennio Benesato, who is Altair's brother, who's not part of the cult. He's been governor of Lucator from before before Altair married Neva, but now he's kind of just the show person. He's got no real power. He just shows up and performs perfunctory duties. At least that's what the scuttlebutt in town says. Purgar, the relationship between the different clans in Purgar is very close to kind of Renaissance era Italy, where the different clans have long-standing fights against each other. The general technology level in Purgar is a little higher than it is in a lot of other regions. It's closer to that 15th century, 16th century level, as opposed to the medieval level that you're seeing in Franca, in Borca. But what that's meant is that these clans have had just longer to nurse their long-standing grudges against each other, and one of those grudges is between House Benesato in Lucator and House Lombardi in Bergamo. And currently, the one who leads House or Clan Lombardi out of Bergamo is a guy named Vespuccio Lombardi, who's also known as the White Wolf of Bergamo. The White Wolf of Bergamo has, in no uncertain terms, told the Anabaptists to go fuck themselves. He has seen what's happened to the rest of Purgar. He wants nothing to do with the Anabaptists and is very aggressive in his dealings with them, to the point of prohibiting them from coming into Bergamo, and even permitting some Jehammedans, who the Anabaptists have been fighting a century-long war with, to take up residence in Bergamo. Bergamo is much bigger than what Purgar is. I think, if I remember, Bergamo is either 20 or 40,000. I think it's 20,000 and it doubles in the summertime. Lucator is about 8. So there's that. Now, the reason that that's important, not only because that's just sort of the biggest regional threat, there's been rumors that the northern clans have been sort of getting agitated and ready to sort of cause problems for the Anabaptists, or at least that's the rumors that they heard. But the other issue is that it's not only Altair who found love late in life, because not the White Wolf, Ennio Benesato, the governor of Lucator, has found his lady love, who is 20 years his junior, and her name is Galla Lombardi, the daughter of the White Wolf of Bergamo. Now, the Lombardi name is loathed in Lucator because of the Vespuccio Lombardi's attitude towards the Anabaptists. Lucator is a very, very devout region. For pretty much everyone you will see will be a devout follower. This is I was joking that it's like the Bible Belt of Purgara, only not the Bible, it's Anabaptists. And that caused a bit of a, because Gallo Lombardi is around and has been, it's said, influencing the elderly Ennio Benesato, there was a very quick reaction in town where some people were saying that either Gala or Ennio killed his brother to try and seize control. And the response from that was, well, those who were still loyal to House Benesato were saying, well, no, I'd rather see him in control than I would that bitch Neva, who cares only about the faith. And that's been sort of a new tension between the Anabaptists and those who are loyal to House Benesato. For hundreds of years now, House Benesato and the Anabaptists have been one and the same. And the concern, of course, is that if Gala has tricked her husband to follow her son, the White Wolf of Bergamo has long had his eyes on Lucator. And if he can take over Lucator, not only is there an advantage geographically, it is a huge blow to the Anabaptists if they lose the production of Elysium oils here. So things in Lucator have been tense. I think on the trip down, Atiano, Sakari, and Hobbs, would you mind changing your display name to have your character name in there too? Adewale, just because I'll forget. The Adewale, Atiano, and Sakari. The trip down here has been because you would have passed through the Helvetica and the Helvetica region here. These are the Alps. They're controlled by another cult called the Helveticans. They're basically the survivors of a Swiss effort to live through the Eschaton by sealing themselves and technology and resources and the army inside the Alps. So they have these alpine fortresses and these passages that lead from one side of the Alps to the other around this thing called the Reaper's Blow, which is like basically a magma chasm that cuts all the way from what was the English Channel all the way down to the Mediterranean. There's ways of getting under it that the Helveticans have prepared, but because they still have technology from the bygone age, they have arms, and they've got these fortresses that were powerful when they were first built and have had 500 years to reinforce. They control the passages, and that's what you guys have been held up for. The Neo-Libyans actually get along fairly well with the Helveticans, as does Atiana, or the Scourgers. Scourgers, they are crows, but they're pretty, they're mercenaries and they're warriors. For the most part, the Helveticans are still part of the army, and they have a very army attitude. And even though it's not the same sense of destiny that the Scourgers have with respect to the African people, they definitely have the same sense of attitude and sacrifice that the Scourgers have. So you get along pretty well. It may have actually been the Anubian is the reason you guys were held up. But what you found is, as you traveled along the Eden route to get to Lucator, is, for one, your little dune buggy is definitely getting a lot of attention, because there will be, most people will never have seen something like that. They will have heard about the Scourge tanks that Neo-Libyans use and Africans in general use, either in their exploration of the wastes of Purgar or in the wars in Hyperspania, but they've never seen one. To see this thing to go along is just like, it blows their minds. Every village you have, kids come running out and whatnot, and then, run screaming. Well, they have one of two reactions. They're either fascinated by the look of you people, because there's not a lot of Africans who make their way through Purgar, or terrified, depending on how your characters choose to handle things. And again, the mask, because kids sort of cut both ways in their reactions. I'm picturing that Atiano, you get the mix of, like, a lot of kids might be scared of your big scary mask and the crazy feathers and whatnot, and some may be fascinated by it, right? You look kind of like a badass action figure, so it might be kids who think that it looks great.
Who's driving?
That's that. Remember the picture of the dune buggy I held up?
Yeah, who's driving?
Oh, who was driving? Who's got points in of the three of you? Who's got the most points in navigation?
I have none.
Is that orienteering?
Nope, navigation.
Agility, navigation.
Oh, no.
I've got nothing.
Nothing. Well, then it's going to be Atiano who's driving, because I think he's got the highest agility.
I got 3 agility.
Yeah. So Atiano's the one, and it technically belongs to you anyway. So or it's supplied to you. It was purchased by Adewale, but it was brought by you. So let's do this. Adewale, would you kindly give me 1 sec here? Because I think you're the one who is probably the most likely to be chatting with people on your way down to Pragar. Give me a charisma and expression check, please.
How do I roll?
You just click on the expression skill, and then I'll give you an opportunity to talk about how this works. Okay.
There you go.
All right. So the way that the game works, it's dice pools, but it's dice pools of d6s. You roll them. If you roll a 1, 2, 3, it's a failure. If you roll a 4, 5, 6, it's a success. And in addition, a roll of a 6 is a trigger. And triggers are kind of like momentum in 2d20, or they're like edge or advantage in Star Wars. So it's the thing that tells us about the quality of your success. You roll 1 success. So I think what you guys have heard as you're traveling down is that the Jahamadans, you've heard about the murder of Altair. You've heard about the flow of missionaries and whatnot that are making their way down towards the city. And what you've heard is that the Jahamadans have killed Altair, and it's belated revenge for his actions during the Adriatic War. That's what some, Pergaran merchant that you meet along the way out of Wale tells you. So you guys would have had an opportunity on the drive down here to think about, like, well, how's this going to affect our... this definitely is going to be a city in crisis if a powerful, member of the clergy and also part of the military died. But it could also be opportunity, maybe. New leadership in a new position. It may mean that there's some, opportunity for changes. So that's what is going through your mind as you guys come rolling over. And the roads here too, like this, these are at best normally used by horses if people have them. So you can picture just how rough the ride is as you're driving your way down towards it. And this is guys, if you hit expand, it's a pretty big illustration. But this is the look going down into Lucator. Now, I'll just quickly, because Hobbs, if you don't know anything about the game itself was designed by an art studio. And they are very, very heavily involved in the design elements and whatnot, too. So the art in this game is some of the best in any role-playing game, but it takes great pains to be very, very accurate, which is amazing. So there's no miscommunication between the art order and the actual finished product. So what you can see here is, in the background there, you can see the cloister looming over Lucator. You can see the water towers in the southern end of town there. And you can see that there's 3 main peaks that are around there. Those 3 peaks are named after ancestors, Benesato ancestors. You can see the wall that surrounds the town as well too, and then right in the middle there, you see where there is a little squat structure that sticks above everything else. That's House Benesato. That is the original keep that was built. Well, technically it's the second keep. The first keep was built where the cloister now stands, but once they realized that this region was relatively safe, once the Anabaptists came in, they moved down into the lower valley, built the Benesato castle or keep there. The city expanded out, and when the Anabaptists came, they reclaimed what was the old castle. This is what you see as you guys are coming down, and for those of you who are used to the the other thing, the reason I mentioned the cultures as well too is that Adewale, you may notice that while Sakari and Atiano have Africa or African as their culture. You don't. You have Hispania. That's because even you come from a Neo-Libyan family, but you grew up in Hispania. So what that means is either you're part of the wealthy part, groups that are trying to, make their fortune there, or you're part of some desperate group or could have come from a family of soldiers who have been fighting in the wars against I think they're called the Corridors, which is one of the clans that's located there. Or whatever, but you're actually not from Africa. You didn't grow up there, so there may be some resentment from maybe not Sakari, because Sakari, it's neither here nor there. But Atiano, I'll leave it up to you, Carl, to figure out how Atiano feels about Adewale. He is an African. There's no doubt about that. He's definitely has the status as a Neo-Libyan, but it's not actually from the continent, and maybe he's never ever set foot on the continent. That's not true. He probably sailed there, but it's not really lived there.
But they're pushing like African culture into.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think I'd be okay with that.
Okay, cool. So then this is
extending the reach of the lion.
Absolutely, and it's kind of a joint endeavor then too. Like if he's able to open this, that's a way of basically tricking the crow. So, what are you guys thinking here? You guys would have had an opportunity to talk a little bit as you are, on the route down here. How does this change your plans here?
So how do we address Adewale? Is he boss or?
He is sort of the maybe patron.
Oh, okay. The patron's good. How do we approach this? Storm the gates.
Well, I guess our first objective would be finding the Spilitalian, but I don't know if searching out this drug deal is what we really need to do. It seems like we should. Whoever gets to the bottom of this death of Altair could certainly gain a lot of prominence in Lucator.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly appreciate the approach of tearing them apart from the inside. I'm a defiler.
Yeah.
There is chaos, there is opportunity. It could be lucrative for you and for our glory.
Yes. Lucrative for me is lucrative for us all, my friend.
Well, my Kolpesh of Shining Steel stands ready to cut the thread of the unworthy. Just point me in the right direction.
Nice.
As soon as I see an unworthy, I will not hold you back.
All right.
Good.
So one of the things
my patron.
I'm going to move these tokens just for a sec here, guys. You see the guy in the top left there, the farmer and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things about the Anabaptists is the first, when you first join the Anabaptists as a chosen, I can't remember what the first rank is called, but what you get is a handful of seeds. Those who slander the Anabaptists refer to them as farmer soldiers, because agriculture is a very, very important part of their beliefs, restoring the corrupted world of the demiurge to service to God. So as you're going in, you're seeing these massive fields of wheat on the north and south side of the valley, and many farming communities that are bountiful, like very, very rich for a region that you would expect to be, having passed through southern Franca, which is a wasteland, and the the depths of the Alps. This looks incredibly bountiful. And
let me just get my geography here. So we came up from Africa.
No,
right?
No, you guys would have been. You and Sakari are originally from Africa.
Right. How did we get here? We came from Hibernia.
You were originally, so you were seconded to Adewale in Hispania, and then he went from Hispania into Franca or into southern Borca, and he's been sort of bopping around trying to find an opportunity to kind of get a way in, and that's when he fell in with Ulpiano, and then the Judge Eckert and Interface, and also Karina, because Karina was protecting Ulpiano.
So there's still fighting going on in Hispania, though.
Definitely.
Somehow that's contained so that we can, go along?
No,
to
but like,
Branka?
you kind of have to do more than one thing.
Right.
Like the soldiers fight there, but not every African is fighting in Hispania. You need to be doing more than one thing. So Adewale has, from the kind of central bank in Tripoli, he's managed to secure a commission to do this stuff, to try and find another way into explore other opportunities among the Crows. And when he's doing that, he needs the advice of the north is full of these spores, right? So having Sakari along to keep him safe and also give kind of advice from the spiritual advice, that's always going to be helpful. And having you along is just to keep him safe, because you are, again, the lion's paw. You guys,
Sakari is also like a warrior type.
He is, but he's also he's more of an Anubian first.
I am a keeper of secrets.
Yeah.
So what is that?
Well, the Anubians are creepy
Is that more
motherfuckers.
Okay.
Yeah,
So what do we know that they do, or what do we?
What they have connections with the spirits, as far as you know. What Atiana
Like
would
a
know
mystic, kind of.
definitely. So, what you did then is once you met up with the rest of the party, you guys had made your way through Southern Franca to try and follow this burn trafficking. You made your way through the lands of the Helvetics, and then you made your way down into Pergar. Unfortunately, you guys were delayed by about 4 or 5 days, so you guys will be arriving quite a bit later than what the rest of the group has done. It's late in the day as you guys are going along, and your engine the sound of it is echoing off of both sides of the valley, and you are no doubt drawing the attention of everybody as you are heading down towards Lucator. It's getting late in the evening as you're heading along, and you can picture on the Eden route itself, you've got many there's pilgrims who are making their way into Lucator from elsewhere in the general vicinity to pay their respects to the Baptist. And you probably have made really terrible time because the roads are choked with people. Either people who are going to pay the respects to the Baptist or are returning home afterwards. So that may actually have been part of the problem, is that you've got a really poor choice of mode of transportation, just given the circumstances. But that's what...
And have any of us been here before?
No, definitely not. No, Africans, it's a rare thing for Africans to arrive here. So
do they react to us arriving, like not just the vehicle, but like us as people?
You definitely stand out, and this is what Adewale would be aware of. You guys can choose for Atiano and Sakari how you choose to interpret this, but there is generally going to be some hard feelings towards Africans as you go in, but that's not unexpected when you're traveling anywhere in the Mediterranean. That's part of the reason why you have a badass like Atiano with you. If you've got the vehicle and you've got that assault rifle, like that is terrifying shit. This is literally like you be taking it's bringing AR-15 to a sword fight. Right? So the Neo-Libyans
I still prefer my Kopesh.
Atiano may disagree.
That is fine. That is why we get along.
Okay. So we're going to leave you guys with, as you're kind of coming down into the valley, we're going to cut back to our heroes. And you're soaked as well, too. It's been drizzling and raining, which also has probably hurt the route or the trip back to meet up with the rest of the group. So back in the eastern end of this, on the far side of Borreo, the northeastern peak in the valley, what you guys can, we have our heroes who are crouching down with Black Tom. I'll get Black Tom's illustration back up here. And you can see you have seen Neva walk out of that tent. This is what the Romano camp looked like, guys, as a reminder. There were a couple of tarpaulins that were stretched over. There was, the tents were basically made of tarpaulins. There is camo net over it as well too. There's, as you can see in the illustration, there's mining going on in there as well too, or at least there's pits and stuff like that have been dug out. You guys interface nearly fell into a pit, but was saved at the last second by, I think it was Olpiano.
Yeah.
Yep. And you guys saw seven members of the Romano clan came out along with Neva. So let's pick up from that moment. And I think let's first turn our camera to Karina. Because what we saw was Karina whisper out. Neither Interface or Olpiano have actually seen Neva up till now, the Iron Emissary. But Karina, you'll know her. She's been a legend in Lucator and amongst the Anabaptists since, Altair first laid eyes on her on the battlefield. So, Karina, what do we see happen with you?
I think we can see, Karina's knuckles are white on the Biden hander. She's, kind of, it's sort of a mix of it's not furious, right? Although that's definitely in the mix, but it's also sort of a real sense that we're in kind of over our heads, and she sort of turns to Tamaro and kind of gestures with her head like, let's back away, and
And he looks at Olpiano and Interface.
Yeah, almost like we need to get out of here.
The odds are in our favor.
He points at Papa Chico.
I'll shake my head.
You pull that trigger, we're all
Not
dead.
now. I'll say not now.
Okay.
I don't know what he'll do.
He shakes his head, turns and walks away. One thing that Jeff left out of the backstory, I forgot about that, about Black Tom. Black Tom's missing 2 of his fingers.
Oh, yeah.
The reason he's missing 2 of his fingers is because he's the son of an influential Neo-Libyan. He was kidnapped by Papa Chico, abused by Papa Chico, kept in a cage by Papa Chico, brutalized by his children, and then when he was released after his father paid the ransom, Papa Chico bit 2 of his fingers off and then dropped them in the street to be found by it. On top of that, having paid the ransom, once that got back to the bank in Tripoli, they canceled his father's commissions. They seized his estate. He lost all of his retinue, including the Scourger who had taught Black Tom how to fight. And Black Tom was left penniless in the street with his father. And when his father died shortly thereafter, he was so broke he could not even bury him and had to toss him into the Mediterranean. Tamaro fell in with some scrappers, and then years pass, and he hears about someone making a deal with a Romano named Papa Chico. Over the last year, he has tracked Papa Chico up to here, and over the last few weeks, he's been plotting how he is going to kill Papa Chico. And he's already shown the other heroes the 4 bullets that he intends to use, which each has something written on them. So he has a vested interest in seeing this Romano dead. Now, as you guys are sort of looking at each other, Neva, Papa Chico, and the rest of their retinue kind of start moving on. Would Karina, Interface, and Olpiano each give me a perception roll, please? Nice. 1 trigger. Excellent, Interface. Wow. Okay. Eesh. Okay, so Olpiano or Interface, you're maybe standing up a little further back from it. Like once you saw what was down there and realized that you don't recognize anyone, you stood back and you were kind of looking around. There's people coming. What are you doing? Do you tell anyone? Interface? Hello?
Sorry, I had my mute on. I forgot. I muted when Caden walked by. I'm like,
If I don't talk, they won't see me.
I know.
Yeah, exactly.
Sound strategy, Brad.
Okay, so as I see people in the, I'll tap the other two on the shoulder and point back and put a.
Karina, as soon as he points, you realize, shh, yeah, they're very, very close right now. You can hear them talking with each other, and in a Pargaran accent.
So I'm gonna. Which way did Black Tom go?
Black Tom is just starting to move away to the opposite direction from where these guys are. Actually, in the direction, roughly that Papa Chico, the other 7, Romano, and Neva were going. I mean, that's the direction you guys came, remember, because you found that horse and then kind of came over. It's not directly. It's back down into that depression, and then he's going to make his way across.
Okay, so it's not like he's directly going after them.
Well, you don't know. I mean, it's...
I know, that's what I'm sort of...
All roads lead to problems for the PC, right? I mean, that's the old adage.
So I'm gonna do my best to kind of quietly lead the way, following Tamaro.
Okay. So why don't we do this, guys? I think that with having gone through that harrowing experience, and I think Opiano rolled 3 triggers on his athletics check to try and catch interface, and I will let you use one of those to basically just like hustle back to where you think you saw Black Tom go, to go back down into that depression, to follow along, avoid the pits, and then carry on out. What he does is he gets to you can find Black Tom at the other end, and he looks back at you guys and says, "You're sure? He's right over there. We could take him now. And your woman."
Can't take all of them. Oh, that's with the modulator.
Yeah. Interface's voice always comes out digitized, kind of like Darth Vader style, too. So
I'm picturing slightly lower tech, almost sort of like loudspeaker, how it's sort of like muffled like an old school like
love it. Yeah.
speaker would be.
Sure. Yeah, that's great. Okay. So he shakes his head and then says, "This way." And he leads you in a new direction you guys have not gone yet. You travel. It's now dusk was when you arrived there. You're traveling in darkness right now, so you're having to be very careful with where you're placing your feet. But after about maybe a half hour of travel, he allows you guys to light up one of the lanterns that you were carrying. Brandon, I don't want to alarm you, but there's something lurking around behind you.
Yeah, I see that. Hang on, I'll be right back.
No, that's okay. So when what will happen is you guys will be pulled aside by Black Tom, and he looks at you all, and says, "You getting a chance to take a breath, to take a drink from your what do you call it, your canteens?" And he says, "So, you see now? What is your woman?
See.
What is your woman doing down there? I've not seen her there before."
Not sure what she's doing, but I kind of doubt that it's
Who is she?
what we'd want.
Is she like
That
you?
one is Neva the Emissary.
The emissary? He shrugs his head. She's important to you.
She's supposed to be in charge in Lucator.
You swore. Yes?
Yes, Papa's yours, and it looks like that the Anabaptists won't be taking him out anytime soon.
You can find your way back from here, yes? Upiano, give me an orienteering check, please.
See if I think I can.
Absolutely, yeah. You can see that to the south is Vargas, the third of the 3 peaks. You can definitely find your way back to Lucator and then sort of figure out how you want to get in again. So what do you say?
Give us some time to ponder this new changes to the situation. and we'll be in touch.
You've
Your
told
time
them.
will come, but it is not now.
You've told your people where they can find me.
We
I'm
didn't
not.
tell them where they could find you, just that you were in the hills. And you've done a pretty good job of avoiding everybody else, so I think that you'll...
If this one, and he gestures back to the camp, if this one commands you, to tell her where to find me, you will tell her, won't you?
I would be obligated to, yes.
I will find you. How will I find you? I take you at your bond, Karina. I take you at your word that you will leave Papa Chico for me. But I won't ask of you to swear that to break another oath. I wouldn't expect that, nor would I grant that to you. But best if you don't know where I am. Though, if you told her people that you know that they're out there, you may wish to consider a cave of your own.
Yep.
Then, you're staying at the house outside of town?
Yep.
There is a white pine on the north edge of the city, near where the cattle ranch is. There's a hollow in that. I will leave word in there. I will leave word in there where you can meet with me. I will not be staying there, but this seems the best way to trust. Would you agree? You guys can hear kind of a kind of echoing off. Interface, you look up again to see if it's the drone you saw from before, but no, it's different sound. It's not that buzzing. It's just then.
Can I place the kind of noise it is?
You probably can. You've heard the engine of their what do you call it? Of their dune buggy running for the last little while, or when you traveled with them before you went through the Alps. They took their sweet time getting here. Jeez.
Sounds like
which?
Sorry, it sounds like the engine of a vehicle. I know that noise.
Black Tom says, I do too. There's Africans coming here?
They're our friends.
He looks at you're friends with Africans.
Of course, why would that surprise you?
It's called a comb, K-O-M. That's the name of the vehicle.
Cool.
Then, do not tell them that you've met me. Or do. I must go. The white pine near the cattle. Yes? And
Yes.
he turns and he kind of scampers off into the forest. What do you guys do?
I think we should hang out for a couple minutes, and then
Why?
probably make our way back to town once everything is quiet.
Why wait?
Just to give time for everyone in the area to move away. They passed us by, just in case someone doubles back. Give it a minute.
You guys are way away from the Romano camp at this point. Remember, you've been traveling for a while by the time that you guys stopped to talk. Like, you wouldn't stop and have a full conversation when there was any chance of you guys getting discovered.
Well, in that case, then
Right.
Although it might be a good idea. So we're far enough away. We're on near the commission house, right?
You got right now. This conversation is probably happening right around here, like somewhere deep in the forest.
Okay.
Where you're staying, yeah, is the commission house. So you may want to. It is still raining, and it is still. It was dusk when you guys first got to the Romano camp, so it's dark. You guys likely are going to have no difficulty making your way back to commission house if you don't want to, and that will be where you would be able to intercept the comb as it's making its way into Lucator.
Okay.
Yeah. So seems like it's probably best to avoid because Tamara got in trouble just for being an African. Seems like having 3 more show up to the party is probably not a good idea in these troubled times.
No, particularly if they intend on using Black Tom as a scapegoat for, you know. So you guys, I think you arrive back in at the commission house where Dana is waiting for you, or not waiting for you, but she has sort of prepared things for your evening meal. And as you guys walk in, she sort of looks over she's sitting at the table, sort of idly, you know, munching on some of what was prepared for a meal. And she says, "You're back, and you're filthy. Where have you been?" You guys are probably covered in mud, and you know.
We've been exploring in the forest.
What were you in the forest for?
Seemed like a good evening to go for a walk.
In that digitized voice.
But
She says, "Well, the
we had to
meal is." She says, "What is that sound?" And it's getting louder. So if you guys take a look outside Commission House, we'll say around now is where you see the comb coming riding up down. Its lights are on. You can see the falling rain, cutting across the beam that is cast by the 2 big lights in the front. You can see that. I think, let's say Adewale is behind the wheel. Sakari is in the passenger seat, and Atiano is sort of like at a kind of a jog or a light jog beside. Atiano, I put in for your character sheet. The character sheets actually track encumbrance really, really well, and they allow you to distinguish where your stuff is at, whether it's in hand, whether it's stowed on your person, or whether it's elsewhere. And if it's stowed in your person, you can, like it's in a backpack, you can just click under combat where you drop stowed things, and it'll automatically calculate your encumbrance penalties, or recalculate them if you're dropping heavy shit. You don't really need to worry about that, Atiano, right now, because you are very strong. But yeah, you're kind of jogging along, and as they sort of come walking up, Ulpiano, Interface, and Karina, you guys all recognize, you know who this is. And I don't think you've seen Adewale or Atiano probably for a couple of weeks at this point. Sakari was holding behind to wait to meet up with them. So it's been a while since you've seen them, but looks like Adewale has finally, and his guardian, Atiano, have finally actually made it here. So as you guys come rolling up, Dana comes out of the commission house and is just amazed by the sight of this comb coming riding up. What happens after that thing comes riding up, guys?
I think we would come out to, or at least Ulpiano would come out to meet them.
yeah, I would as well.
Sure.
Adewale offers a bright smile. "Hello, my friends. We have finally made it."
Yes. Glad you could make it.
We have brought the calm. My good man Etiano here has brought it with us. How goes our efforts?
Fine machine.
Definitely some interesting events have occurred while we've been waiting for you. Have you heard news on the road?
It looks like you've been hunting pigs in the woods.
Well, yes.
Perhaps we should clean up. It's been a long drive and speak over it over a drink.
Dinner. and a drink.
Even-
Sounds great.
Even better.
So,
How can you all stand this place? There are too many ripples in the wave here.
Dana kind of looks at you, at Olpiano, and then up at Karina and says, "Will they be staying too?"
Do we have room?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay.
It will be staying.
That's what he's asking her, but yeah.
Oh yeah. She's of course, but and she kind of like is trying to figure out what to do and looks up at Karina. House Benesato, it would be against tradition to see anyone sleep in the streets, even. And she kind of realizes what she said and leaves it unfinished, and says, "Please, that," and she gestures at the comb. You could, around back, perhaps.
Good idea.
Okay. So you guys hop in and start it up, and Atiano, you take it around back to find a place where you can sort of leave it. The sound of the engine obviously disturbs many of the animals that are sort of, the chickens that are kept in a little coop next to the commission house. Adewale and Sakaria, what you find, the commission house itself is a 2-story affair. When you walk in, there's sort of a main dining area, and there's some places to kind of entertain. And then there's a second floor where there are a number of individual rooms. Adewale, you've been to, been around enough to recognize this as sort of like it is set up as a place to, to entertain or to welcome visitors. It is, of course, a fucking pale comparison to what you are used to. What a Neo-Libyan would welcome in their estates and their homes in Hispania or elsewhere in the Mediterranean. But this is as good as these people can do.
It is expected.
Okay, so you make your way in, and Donna offers you guys all meal. Offers a meal. It's going to be a bit of a for one of the first times where the table is nearly full. But you're served your meal. Atiano, when you take your mask off after getting inside as well, to the Scourger mask and your helmet, she's a bit taken aback by the war paint that she finds underneath there. Oh, and you're also probably a very, very tall man. So rivaling Karina in terms of the sheer body mass. So you guys have a chance to sit down to break some bread. What do you guys talk about?
Well, I think that the story that I recounted, plus the extra details that you shared, would be the bulk of the conversation over dinner. I won't redo it again. But...
Sure. So you guys are brought up to speed as to sort of the local situation, the status of the investigation, the murder, and so forth.
Yep. So Atiano is not one to mince words, but he just says, "I heard there was a murder, and we heard it from a merchant on the road that it was a Jihadian."
Jahamadan.
Jahamadan.
What's a Jahamadan?
That's that cult that they have been fighting.
Yeah.
Okay. We have seen no evidence of that. We've seen a lot of foul play.
Mm-hmm.
Foul play means opportunity. Tell me of it. What do you think? Why would this Iron Woman be involved with these Romadanos in the hills?
To murder her own husband? I don't know. Take power in the area, I guess.
I'm picturing you guys all kind of hunched over because you probably really don't want Dana to hear this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that typical culture? Some spiders do that in Africa.
There's more to it than that. The Romero have been digging giant holes for some purpose.
Romano.
Of something else.
Romero makes zombie films. Romano are yeah.
Yes, we don't know what they're up to.
Sort of suggest kind of if as the conversation starts to get going, I'd sort of stand up and walk Dan out of the room and talk as a way to sort of, the the surface of the conversation is to thank her for the unexpectedness of all of this, but obviously to try to, allow them to converse in privacy for a little bit too.
If you want to provide an excuse for getting her out of the house for a bit, you maybe could send her on a late night run for supplies or food.
Right, seeing as there's 3 more guests now.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. With the amount of guards that are wandering around at night, she's probably safe. And those vigilante squads that are wandering around. So she bundles up and she heads out. So you guys are free to talk in, without restriction.
I mean, we have no for sure evidence that Vera, what's her name?
Neva.
Neva has committed the crime, but her involvement is seeming pretty obvious from our perspective.
Perhaps she is paying Romano for finding something in the hills and not the murder.
Perhaps.
If they're digging. Let's see.
So one thing that the guys can tell you as well too is many of the there's another cult called the Scrappers, and the Scrappers are it's what they sound like. They go around and dig in holes and ancient in ruins and try and recover relics and other things from the bygone time. Here's a handout for Neva, the Iron Emissary.
She looks a lot more hardcore in this picture.
Definitely.
Yeah.
What do you call it? The Scrappers, the Scrappers have basically picked, in the 5 centuries since the Eschaton, they have for the most part picked Pergara clean of any things like that. So that's part of the reason why there's no real Scrapper presence in the region, and also why there's no Chronicler present. Chroniclers are often the ones that the Scrappers deal with to sell the shit that they find. The fact that the Romano are out there digging holes, there's still, apparently, at least the rumor that was heard, there's still gold and coins and valuables and shit like that that have been buried or that have been forgotten out there. So, yeah.
Do we know that? So digging is dangerous, right? Is that, or digging holes? Aren't there bad things under the ground, or would we think that, or?
Not necessarily. No. I mean, that's where Scrappers do that stuff all the time. Right. It's more the point that the reason you don't have Scrappers here is not because it's dangerous. It's because there's nothing really. There's no relics. There's no bygone things to be found in this region. It's already been picked over centuries ago. So it's unless you're stupid or desperate, the Scrappers won't be spending time here. And for clanners, what Karina and Olpiano learned last time, or what they rolled, they know that the Romanos they're definitely criminals. They're blackmailers, they're murderers, they're thieves, but they're based out of Roma, further to the south, for one. And second, they're not Scrappers. So if they're up here and digging, that's unusual in and of itself. What they could be digging for right now, you guys aren't quite clear, but there's not like an admonition against digging necessarily.
And the evidence of Neva's involvement in something nefarious with Altair is not just the Romas, but also the fact that she has requested from the Greater Church no assistance in discovering the identity of his murderer.
Mm-hmm. What Karina can explain to you is that it's the Council of Emanations, that basically runs the Anabaptists from Cathedral City in Franca, or East. I think it's Western Borca or Eastern Franca, and Anabaptists in a place like Lucator that is so important for the production of Elysian oils. If the Baptist is murdered there, they're probably going to want to know why the hell that's happened. But if she specifically said, no, don't send an investigation, that's unusual.
Definitely.
So that puts suspicion on this woman.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is where the bulk of my suspicion comes.
So what is our next step, Olpiano?
Well, I think that we could either attempt to get word to. Sorry, Kev, you just said what they are. The
Romanos.
no, the church, the greater church.
Council of Emanations.
Yeah, the council. Or we could try to discover more evidence on our own.
Oh, just out of character, did you guys mention Black Tom? Or did you leave
Yes. Actually, I think, at least I don't know if you guys would have tried. I would.
Okay.
I would as well.
Piano would. Yeah.
Adewale, would you give me a intelligence and legends check, please?
Yeah, maybe you know his family.
And actually, Atiano, you can make that roll as well. Intelligence plus legends. I don't think you're very good at it, but
Yeah,
you can give it a go. Holy shit, nice.
Oh, nice.
Well done, Hobbs. Adewale, you've heard about this kid. Because I mean, it's sort of it's a legendary kind of cautionary tale from. It's probably before your time because Black Tom is a little bit older than what you are, but yeah, it's sort of like it's a cautionary tale of like if your kid gets kidnapped, don't bankrupt yourself or the bank trying to recover him back. So it's served as a reason why you never want to, you would never do something like that again. So Jesus, is that this? You actually remember? I think with a roll that good, Black Tom's or Tomero's father's name too. His father's name was Atos, Atos, Atos.
Hobbs, do you think Adewale would have shared with the rest of us any of his greater plans, like that he's hoping to get, a foothold in the region permanently as far as to help him and his people? Like, is that something that he would be open about or he would be secretive about?
Well, I guess I don't really know how well he knows Olpiano. That's, as far as I know, that's the only contact I have. I don't even know if he knows Carino or Interface at all.
You've been traveling. You can picture that you've been traveling with Olpiano, and then Carina and Olpiano have been traveling together since they left Pergar to head northeast into kind of deeper into Europe. Interface would have been picked up sometime when you were in there, but you guys have likely traveled for at least two or so or 3 months together. So
I think so. I think we would have talked at some length, of how we were going to, what the plan was to, or you could at least easily have picked that up. It's not something that he's hiding per se.
Right, and it's not like it's anything illegal or whatever.
No.
It's
No. It's merchant talk, really, right? Business.
Yeah, merchant talk, exactly.
Business, my friend. Business.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, of course.
So maybe good patron, you could talk to this Papa Chico if he's some sort of trader merchant in the area.
Yeah, that was one of my thoughts, because he might be involved with the burn anyway. Is that possible? Because who was the contact at Olpiano? Or we could use that maybe to talk with them. I don't know.
So there's another cult called the Apocalyptics, and the Apocalyptics are kind of like, for outsiders' perspective, they are hedonists and criminals, and they are all organized into these kind of associations called flocks that are like rival, kind of like a combination, like the stereotypical view of what Rom are, where they're traveling, thieves and whatever else. There is, if you dig deeper into the Apocalyptics, there is a very clear hierarchy and philosophy behind what they're doing. But from the outside, that's what they're seen as. The Apocalyptics are generally the ones who are responsible for producing and spreading the burn. Each of the different sort of asteroid impact sites around, they produce a very different kind of spore, which has a different effect. And the burn that's made from each of them is different and has a different effect. So it's most likely the Apocalyptics who would be the ones who would be dealing that, or at least smuggling it on a regular basis. It's possible that the It's possible that the Romano have thrown in with them. They are a bunch of ne'er-do-wells, but if what they're doing is smuggling burn, going and digging holes in a region that's very far away from your home base seems like a weird way of going about that.
What cult are the Romanos in?
Romanos are clanners. They're just a clan. Like in a metagame kind of thing, the clanners, if you're part of the clanners, that's sort of the catch-all from anyone who's not part of the one distinct cults. And the clans can be anything from, you could be from a Stone Age cult where like you hunt with a stick and a rock, and that's what you're, and you had limited knowledge of the outside world, or it could be something as advanced as these guys who sort of are living in the shadow of some of the more technologically advanced and sophisticated cities, like the Romanos or like the Benesatos and the Lombardi. Those are both clanners as well.
All right. So, what do we think? Is there a way for us to get in contact with this Papa Roach?
Papa
Romano?
Chico.
Yeah, Papa Chico. Sorry. Maybe if we can talk to him, or we could find someone who knows what they're doing. If we can get information on them, if we know anybody else knows why they're digging out here, who else might know that?
Yeah, well,
Did Black Tom say he knows why, or was he surprised they were digging?
he doesn't really know what their motives are. He's just here for revenge.
There's Papa
He's
Chico, guys.
focused on revenge. I don't think he cares.
I don't think he spoke on their motives out here. I will tell you that if Black Tom's story is to believe, I don't think that Papa Chico will have much love for you or interest. I mean, maybe business is more important to him now, but he's a pretty unsavory character.
Why don't we do this? Adewale, why don't you give me... we already rolled for the other guys. Give me another intelligence and legends check. Let's see what you know, if you've ever dealt with or come across the Romanos before, or even just heard about them.
A
A 1. Oof. So let me tell you. Yeah, I don't think... because you're from Hispania, you probably have not actually come across. You maybe recognize the name, or at least you can guess from the name that they are probably from Roma. But other than that, like, you don't really know much about them.
Well, maybe if this Neva is the new power in town, and you wish to start a lucrative business here, perhaps finding an audience with her might be the best way.
What about this Ennio?
So unfortunately, both of them have been declared off limits by Abacus the Ascetic, who issued a series of pronouncements about what rules are going to be taking place essentially in town, including that nobody is allowed to leave. But no audiences with Neva or with Ennio is part of that.
How many people are the Romanos? How many are they?
We were told a dozen tents.
24 tents, and you guys saw
Or
those.
24 tents, yeah.
And could you sneak in there maybe and see what it is they are looking for? Maybe no.
I could not.
Neither could I. It is not within our skill set.
We were lucky to have Black Tom helping us sneak around their camp, or we would have been seen.
I might be able to, I guess.
Crows can't see where we sneak. Us lions sneak. We sneak up on them.
What do you guys think of that? Reconnaissance on Romanos?
Absolutely. If you're capable, that would be wonderful. We don't know what they're up to.
Well, I don't really know what's a good number of dice to be rolling.
Well, so you can judge that the number it would be a contested roll against their perception, and you can judge because of the nature of the dice pools in this. You can judge that half is on average what you get as your successes. So,
And you can spend personality to increase your dice
ego.
pool. I mean, ego.
You,
Sorry.
you can spend ego to increase dice pool. Yeah.
That was one thing I would meant to ask you. You told us what our concept was, but you didn't tell us what that meant.
What do you mean? What the individual concepts meant, or?
Yeah, you said I was the visionary, but I don't know
Yeah.
what that means.
It means that you can see through walls. No, that's not.
Yeah,
Not at all true.
X-ray visionary.
Not even remotely. It's a weird game. You
Change my density.
Did I forget to mention you guys all have superpowers? So, yeah. All right. So
No,
visionary. When knowledge finally steps out time and into the foreground of reality, the visionary has already seen it. He sees the course of the future, thinks decades ahead, accuses unbelievers, and implores people to be reasonable. He hopes to pave the way for a better tomorrow. His intellect and his vision determine humanity's progress. So you're quite a kind of a forward-thinking, builder. The Abomination, however, for Atiano.
Yeah, I read it. I have the. They're crazy. Are
Yeah.
you sure?
I'm going to read it for the benefit of for everyone else. Some people have
Yeah, well,
seen
some
too
people
much.
Oh, go ahead. I can read it.
Yeah, you go ahead, Carl.
Some people have seen too much. Something within them is broken, guiding their thoughts down strange paths. No one wants to be around them. The ways of the Abomination disturb those who meet him. His proximity makes them shiver. He sucks in the fright he awakens in others like mother's milk. It nourishes and disturbs him, adding to his weirdness. He loves getting lost in these fantasies and seeing the fire of fear burn in the opponent's eyes.
So Adewale,
He's kind of
yeah,
ticking time bomb.
being granted a scourger to escort you on these missions at first seemed like, holy shit, like this is pretty good. And then you got to know Atiano a little better, and you're like,
Yeah, it's like, you better get me into a fight soon, or he's
Yeah.
just gonna start fighting.
someone clearly wanted, to set you up to fail by putting you with a very, very damaged man. So that someone may have been your DM.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is kind of funny. It says he is a clockwork bomb without an off switch. Tick tock.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Oh man, well, because there's nothing better than giving people a weapon to use in a situation where you really shouldn't be using weapons. So, oh boy, drama.
Yeah.
All right, so what are you guys thinking here?
I would like to. I feel like we need to find out what the Iron Emissary is doing with Papa Chico. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anabaptist, yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Agreed.
it's a dead end. It's a dead end for the body, which was a good lead, but we can't get in there, right? So
I agree. Yeah,
what else do we really have other than this?
Mm-hmm.
I could try and get word to the Spitalians, to my mentor.
To what end?
To see if there's any, I don't know, any help or information that he has.
Well, there's no reason not to send a message then.
At least to send him. I mean, I can write it sort of cryptically. It can be a basic message about the death of Altair, his friend. But if I sort of write it cleverly, I'm sure I can put some words in there to let him know that something is afoot that is not standard, but without making it seem overtly pointing any fingers at anyone.
What's the Pergaran equivalent of Pig Latin?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I'm just assuming someone that knows you well, you can write them a letter where, they can read between the lines a little bit compared to someone who doesn't know you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's also interesting that you didn't actually. We didn't think about this beforehand either. But since your character did not make the effort of sending a message to Vivico, which is not that far away, even though he was in the region, that's interesting. That maybe you were. I'm not sure what the reasons for that would have been. Whether it's
I think he was. I mean, part of it was there was a lot going on with the internal characters as far as some issues and struggles, and I think his first reaction was thinking that he could autopsy the body and get some information to Altair and not just send him a message that your friend is dead. But be more helpful than that.
Yep.
Like he was trying to redeem himself a little bit, but now that things have turned sort of much more complicated and dangerous, he might be forced to reach out with sort of no greater information.
Sure.
So who are the people we can't talk to? The Luciano, the Bastardo, right?
Well, his horse was there. We didn't see him, but
Yeah. So you said he was Altair's son. Is he Neva's son?
No. Neva and
no, he's adopted.
yeah. Neva and Altair. Karina, would you give me a intelligence legends check, please?
Hey, Kev, would it be possible Neva would be using his horse?
Sir, it would be. I mean, she obviously used his horse, but I mean, you would think that the emissary would have her own as well. So here's something that I'm going to give you a little bit of other background here, Karina, because that's an amazing roll, and this is from your. Did you roll an extra dice, or did you? Did
No,
I say
I
it
didn't
afterwards?
roll anything
Yeah, give me one more. Let's see if you get anything out of it.
One more.
How many triggers you get there? 2 triggers already. Holy shit.
Nothing else.
Nice. Still, fucking 2 triggers and 3 successes. So, Luciano Bastardo was adopted by Baptist Altair, but was not necessarily the child of Neva. Like Neva and Luciano Bastardo are actually really not that far apart in terms of age. However, you do know that Baptist Altair and Neva did have a child. She was pregnant. But what you've heard is that the child was born, the child got pneumonia or got sick, and then died. So if you guys are kind of talking this through out loud, Karina, you can probably share that information. Piano, would you give me let's see here. Give me a medicine check, please.
okay. Oh,
Holy
Nice.
shit. How many triggers is that?
just one, but
Just
One.
one, still 5. So, you hear this about pneumonia and the child dying. So, you were living in Vivico up until the time you were sent out on this mission.
right.
I'm not sure. Maybe it's before your time. But you don't remember...
A story about this from the perspective of
No,
Armenia?
and...
Is that what you're trying to say?
Like, it wasn't just that Carmino was a friend. Carmino, for the rest of the guys who missed the Saturday sessions, Carmino is the head of the Spitalian sickbay at Vivico. He was, over the last, 10, 15 years, he's transformed it. It was a joke beforehand. It was the place to send the idiots who couldn't get them, to keep them out of trouble and whatever. He came out and reworked it completely to being a place that would be, it's a valuable place to go and study and train. And it's also has made real inroads with the Anabaptists because they provide treatment for veterans of the Adriatic War. Carmino was also the personal physician or Spitalan for Baptist Altair, so another way that they strengthened the connection between the two. If Altair's son was sick and had pneumonia,
Would have called him.
for sure, in a second, he would have called Carmino to ensure that the child's safety and health and whatnot. You remember him ever... You rolled well enough on your medicine that you don't remember him ever mentioning that. And I mean, someone getting sick and dying of pneumonia, that would be under the supervision of the Spitalians. Would
That
not
would be
happen.
a big deal. Yeah.
Definitely.
Did Carmino deliver the baby then, or
No, because typically, so there is a a maternity ward in the Vivico sickbay, but it's really not used. It's because like midwives can do pretty much 95%. It's only when you see complications with pregnancies, and the hassle of having to travel to Vivico. Vivico, the sickbay, is set up for a hospital like triage unit kind of place for surgery and then also for like fighting against spores and the psychonauts that sort of lurk in the Purgaran region, the psychokinetics. But it's not really like what we would think of as a modern day hospital. Midwives in this world or in the world of Degenesis, it's the deliveries are at home, right, with the wise woman of the village or whatnot. And even someone like the Anabaptists, they would probably leave more to midwives and to faith than they would necessarily the Spitalians.
Okay.
Although, Ulpiano, did you ever dream about the what do you call it?
I did have a strange dream since I've been here, but
yeah, that was about the what is it, like the natal ward or maternity ward?
right. Yeah, I wouldn't have mentioned it, but now that this topic's come up,
And again, like just for the players to know, this is a world of science fiction. There's not really there's no gods, there's no magic, there's no at least no overt proof of any of those things. Anything that is unnatural is either seen as an expression of faith, like what the Anabaptists do, the Nubians do, the Anubians, do the Scourgers to a degree, or the expressions of the horrific alien powers of the Psychonauts. But, people attribute all sorts of importance to dreams and beliefs and faith and shit like that in our world without any clear proof of any of those things, right? So,
right.
maybe it does have meaning.
Are you going to tell us what this dream was? Panio.
Just that, well, it was just that he was there in the maternity ward of...
Yeah, and it's less, the reason I mention it is only for the purpose of Ulpiano's personal character stuff. I'll leave it to you, Jeff, to decide whether it's something he would necessarily share. Because, I mean, if he doesn't believe there's any, any importance to the dream, then it may just be chalked up as like a weird thing. Like, does Ulpiano believe that there are prophetic dreams, or there's that kind of importance or meaning to them?
I don't know, but this place has been weird since we've been here, so I don't. No, I don't think in general he would believe that.
So one thing that
not that there'd be any magical aspect to it. He's a man of science, right? So
let me show you guys just for Hobbs' benefit, because Carl, you'd already know about this, but for where are you, Ulpiano? So this is Ulpiano Hobbs, and if you hop on it or click on it, it'll get a little bigger. That spear in his hands with that jar on the end, that's called a splayer. And what you see on the end is what's called a mollusk. And the mollusk is a genetically engineered device that is designed to respond to the presence of spore or the psychonauts. And it could go from just like gently kind of agitating in the presence of someone who's a burn addict or something like that, to slamming itself violently on the inside in the presence of a powerful psychokinetic, or in the midst of a massive, powerful spore field. So, if you would attribute Ulpiano any kind of those things to the, to the psychonauts, because that in Franca you've heard about psychonauts that can control minds, empty whole villages without any kind of resistance, and they just follow them back to their hives. But you've been keeping a careful eye on that mollusk.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything.
No.
Kev, just for the other guys, can you tell me, can you remember, I don't remember exactly the details of the dream. It was that he was in the maternity ward and the baby was crying and...
Maybe it just faded with time then.
Yeah, that's basically all I remember. I don't remember the greater details.
It's okay. It's been a couple of days, and why would you dwell on it? There's a lot that's
Yeah.
happened in the interim.
Okay. Yeah. So that's, I mean, if he does talk to you about it later, that's all he'd be able to tell you.
Mm.
So it does seem like, I don't know, I feel like there might be a connection to the Bastardo and Neva or something, and getting Altair out of the way would be beneficial for that.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
I see what you mean.
Where the digging comes in, I don't really understand, unless something was hidden out in that part of the woods that she's hired the Romanos to find out. But I don't know how we're going to get anything out of anyone other than the Romano connection here. Stealth in there to see if we can figure something out. What do you guys think? You
Yes.
see any other opportunities? I mean, there are some, but the connections haven't quite reached what we need it to be before we can come up with any solutions.
Right,
Yes.
of course.
I agree with this plan.
And if they
Alright,
see
so-
us, well, then blood can happen.
There's always more than one way to get answers, isn't there?
Okay. Karina, what are you thinking? You've had a chance to hear what everyone's sort of planning and thinking about this stuff, but I mean, this certainly hits pretty close. You've had a couple of hours now to contemplate the seeming connection between the Romanos and the Iron Emissary.
Well, so part of what I'm thinking is that Neva is like a serious warrior for the Anabaptists, or has been, right? It's not like seems unlikely that she would be doing something intentionally to weaken their position in the region. Which makes me suspect it seems unlikely that she's like, I don't think that she like murdered her husband to get him out of the way or something like that. That seems like that's kind of a crisis for the Anabaptists in the area. We haven't seen anything from Ennio Benesato, and that was one of the rumors that I heard on the road, was that he had actually been seduced into killing his brother, which is, always a sort of concern and a possibility. It's pretty weird that the Romano thing is happening, but I think as soon as Ulpiano mentioned having a dream that he can't remember, that's sort of a bit of a spark for Karina that there's some sense that they've been visited, or somehow they had an opportunity that they've missed, in that somehow Ulpiano has been, right, because Karina is definitely faithful and is sort of thinking about it in terms of like, what's the clue that was in there that we don't have anymore that would help us to solve something about this this conundrum, right? What did Ulpiano know at one point that we didn't think was important, but that nowadays we would attribute more importance to it? Or is there anything else like that has come up so far? Because we've had a lot of, right, we've only been able to tell sort of our version of the story to our friends, and so our kind of recounting has been colored by what we've seen as important. But there's a lot of stuff that's going on. Like, we didn't even really mention the flayers at all, and how one of them was preaching on the very first day, right? And after the murder.
So the flayers, what you guys know about that? The flayers, the one who is in town, what Karina can tell you, is a guy named Sirocco the Sinner. And the flayers they're not an organized, group or anything like that. It's just this kind of apocalyptic, flagellant or self-abusing order that springs up sometimes, and gets a following. As it's probably not a surprise that they tend to attract people most during times of crisis. And the reason that the guys were sent out of escorted out of the almshouse to go to Commission House instead was because they were turning it over to the Flayers. Now that may have been because no one wants to bunk with some Flayers. They're, unless you're part of their extreme beliefs, who wants to have a bunch of people who are lying around beating themselves with scourges and other things, wearing bands of barbed wire to try and cure themselves or free themselves of pain. The trouble is in a region where faith is so important, when they're seen as true vessels of God, they hold a lot of importance for the locals. The guys can tell you how many people they saw crowding around Sirocco and his followers as he was flaying himself. As the blood flecks were coming off of his scourge, people were trying to catch it with paper or with cloth to keep it as a holy relic.
Yeah, whatever he was doing was definitely getting the attention of the people in the crowd.
But you have not seen him since that incident?
Well, he hasn't been allowed to preach ever since Avacus had his pronouncements.
So he has not appeared in any...
We haven't seen him
point.
now.
Mm-hmm. Well, as you said, it may just be a confluence of different events that are unrelated. I think that Adewale has the right idea. It's the only connection we have. Perhaps that will lead to more answers. We can investigate further.
Regardless of what's happening, gaining this knowledge may give us leverage for the future.
Mm-hmm.
This is sound strategy, friends.
How late are we playing?
Till 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock CST.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's another half
30
hour.
more minutes.
Yeah.
Sounds good. I shall go write a letter for Carmino.
Should we get tomorrow involved? He seems like he knows something about this, or is his vengeance too strong to be involved with the reconnaissance mission?
Homs, you might want to adjust your gain again too. You're a lot quieter. Like even when you're facing at the mic, you're still quite a bit quieter than anyone else.
Oh dang!
There you go.
That's a little better, yeah.
Anyway, I asked. Well, I'm almost redlining when I talk now, though. If
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we want to involve tomorrow or
Tomorrow. Black Tom.
Tomorrow?
Maybe, for sure, maybe if you were to speak to him and he saw more allies, he might be more willing to cooperate. We have not been the best of allies to him.
And he's very good in the woods and seems to know much about the movements of the Romero.
As long as you will allow him to strike the killing blow on Papa, I believe he would be open to an alliance.
Killing is Atiano's business, and business is good.
But it's been slow, late on, truth be told. But I will allow this tomorrow his revenge.
So you guys hear,
Worthy.
I think when you hear sort of a knock at the door. Donna is still out, getting supplies, but you also look over at the door, and there was a knock there. You all kind of look at each other like, I guess with Donna gone, who's supposed to answer the door?
I'll answer it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Karina, you get up and you make your way over to the door. You open the door, and what you see there, dressed in kind of an armor, like a jerkin, with a tabard over it that bears the sigil or crest of House Benesato, are 2 pike bearers. And you know from living here that pike fighting is sort of a traditional Benesato way of fighting. And you may... I don't think you recognize either of these 2 guys, but you definitely recognize the uniform as part of the house guard for House Benesato. And they look up and they say, Karina, you're Giastic?
That's correct.
And he nods and says, Governor Ennio Benesato wants to welcome you to his home and to sincerely thank you and your colleagues. And you guys can overhear this. I imagine you're all sort of quiet and listening to hear who's at the door.
Perhaps a decent dinner.
Well, these are all barbarians here.
Has
So, Adewale, you sort of wince when Atiano says that, because, yeah, that could...
Kind of did wince. I kind of did wince.
Yeah. Sorry, Arlen, what were you saying?
I was gonna ask them, has Abacus's pronouncement been overturned?
They sort
We
of...
were under the
Give me a... let's see here. I think it's instinct and empathy. Is that right?
instinct and empathy.
Yeah,
It's
give
not
me-
something I'm good at, but it's something I...
Let's see here.
Let's try it.
Pretty good.
Oh,
Okay.
hey.
So what you see is the 2 of them kind of look at each other like, Governor Ennio Benesato wishes you to join him in his home.
Repeat it.
Yeah.
Is there a way
Just-
that you would know what the actual law would be from that? Like through like conduct maybe, or no?
Let's see here. Well, I think, Adewale, you've overheard this as well, too, and you heard him ask the question a second time. Why don't you give me a instinct and empathy check here? Let's see here. And remember, you guys can... now you got no additional... Yeah, you're like, you've never been in here before. But what you as the players could think through, what do you think that would mean?
He's the governor, and he's maybe using that to say we don't have to. He doesn't have to necessarily go by the edict of the aesthetic. I don't know. That would be my thought. I don't know. What do you think, Arlen?
I mean, if it came down to legal jurisdiction, I think, in the aftermath, Ennio could make a strong case for his right to see whoever he wants. I think the question is more in the midst of all of this. Karina's first instinct is to follow the rules of the church in particular. And so I think that means that Abacus's pronouncement kind of... She's been thinking through, like, all night, how do we get around Abacus's pronouncement without actually breaking the rules of it? And so this is kind of an opportunity, but it's not...
So if you've been thinking about that, what Abacus's order is no audience with the governor or the emissary.
Well, this is only dinner.
So the 2 pikemen are standing there and kind of, and I'm picturing Karina has sort of stood back and looked over at.
I really wish he had said "and the emissary." That would have been convenient.
Yeah. Just as an aside, we spend like about a week talking about ands and ors in law school, so in statutory interpretation.
It's fine.
So what do you think?
to
you,
think of
Opiano, or interface where to year.
what
This is
happens
not
if you-
my. This is not my culture.
They're expecting an answer.
But I am both intrigued and suspicious.
Well, hold on, Brent. You guys can't talk about this. They're standing there, like, unless you're giving an excuse to close the door here. And Karina, you know that's the governor just told you to come. I mean, it's phrased in a polite way, but there's not really a,
Yeah.
Wait, did Karina turn to look at us, or Karina, are you still looking at them as you speak to them?
I would probably turn to look at you guys at least for a moment to kind of see if there's anything obvious in your faces about where you're.
I'm nodding like, why not?
Yeah, I do the same, except my face is covered by a mask, so there's no way.
Adewale is looking at you like, why haven't you said yes already?
And I think that Opiano would even go so far as to turn and say, "Well, accept the invitation, Karina.
All right, it sounds
He
like
is the
we
governor."
are coming to see the governor.
Good. Then we will wait. Make yourselves ready. And they step over and kind of stand as much under the awning as they could to get away from the drizzle. You close the door, and what do you guys do?
Get my finery. Etiano, get your best mask.
I am bringing my Kopesh. That's all I need.
Karina can probably tell you that weapons will probably not be allowed in there. You're not permitted to use weapons inside of Lucator, and you're probably certainly not allowed to carry weapons into the Benesato house. Adewale, you would know that.
Would they have a place where, like, when you got there, they took it from you
Yep.
and then gave it to you on the way out? Okay, so I can't go with that. This is my connection to Anubis. I must take it with me, but I will surrender it as we
Okay.
arrive.
Atiana says it does not matter. I am a weapon.
Okay.
What
Unless they take my hands away.
what is the governor thanking us for, Karina?
They didn't say.
I think it's cover for him to speak with us.
Yeah.
Why would he want to? How does the governor even know who you are?
No.
The governor may know who Karina is.
Yeah.
She's got a renown of 1, I think, right?
Renown of 1.
Yeah.
Yes.
So she's sort of known amongst the local orgiastics, and there's only about, I think, 50 of them in sort of in the cloister and serving as the town guard.
And we're staying at the special house where they put up the dignitaries and
Yeah.
stuff. So
While the
Oh yeah, her person told us to move. The governor's person put us here.
yeah,
the governor's person or Neva's person?
governor.
Governor's
Yep, House Benesato
Okay.
moved you guys here. The commission house is used to host guests of the cloister, but it's under the purview of House Benesato.
Okay.
So you said that your mentor was a friend of the person who was killed.
Yes.
Was he a friend of his brother as well?
No.
That I don't know.
Never heard of him. Yeah, you
Okay.
you learned that he had a brother when you arrived here.
Okay, so clearly not the same kind of friend. Maybe acquaintances. I don't know.
This sounds really good, I think. Get yourselves ready, of course.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So, what are you guys can? You don't need to tell me, but just figure out in your mind what you're bringing with you, and Adewale or Karina. Probably Adewale is more mindful to this, just because Karina is a little more of a, I don't want to say blunt instrument, but she's a little less in the way of like remembering to remind people of the social niceties of her town.
Has no points in conduct.
Yeah. How many points?
Yeah. No points.
No points in conduct, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
the chronicler is my staff, the vocoder. Would that be considered more of a ceremonial kind of like part of my outfit, or is that would be considered a weapon?
You would not be allowed to bring the vocoder in. No, they know that whatever whatever magical or whatever technological stuff you can do with the relic power of the vocoder, they won't let you carry that in.
Okay.
I would bring my splayer. I don't know. I'm not attempting to bring it in or anything, but I would definitely bring it with me.
Absolutely. That's one of those things that's sort of like part of the mark of station for Spitalians. Certainly for Famulancers, like the rank of Spitalian that you are.
Yeah.
I think it's at Famulancers when you actually get your splayer. So, all right. So then, guys, you make your way through the. Once you are all ready, you are escorted. Excuse me, by the two pikemen.
I guess if Adewale says it's okay before we go, I will kind of gear up, but I understand I will present these, ceremonially to the guards at the gate.
Sure. Yeah. So
gotta look impressive and intimidate people. That's his thing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So Adewale, you can see, Atiano is like making sure the feathered headdress on the top of his helmet. Well, you might not be able to see under there. There's a military helmet underneath all those feathers as well. So
Cool.
Yeah, the Scourgers look super badass.
Yeah.
Actually, I've got handouts from, I think, all of the characters. Did you want to bring your rifle with you, Adewale? That's sort of it's something that Neo-Libyans take a great deal of pride in.
Oh, I think that would show that I am a Neo-Libyan, so I should definitely have that. If I didn't have it with me, it would be weird, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so let me show you guys here. So this is... There you go. So you can see it always. There's the full regalia that Atiano is wearing.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's super cool.
Yeah.
And to be honest, like, all the cults have super fucking cool stuff about them.
It's gonna be like that scene in the Mel. Oh gosh, which one was it? The third Road Warrior movie?
Thunderdome.
Yeah. Where you take out all the weapons.
Yeah. Okay, and then here is Adewale with all of his accoutrements and such.
That's another. I saw that image once before. That's a great image.
Mm-hmm. So you guys make your way through town. The few people who are up and are making the way around, obviously you guys get the Chronicler, the Spitalian, the Scourger, the Anubian making their way through. Really attracts anyone passing by is getting a serious case of rubbernecking. The two people, the two pike bearers, Karina, you learn are like, oh, you actually have met them, you think, before, but maybe in passing. Their names are Domingo and Pache. And I'll put that in here for you. They lead you through. If you don't ask them anything, they remain silent throughout the passes through town. And for you guys, you pass through the Market Square, which is remarkably empty, obviously at night. But in addition, because there's been no, buildings or or most of the shops have been closed for the last 3 days. But then you see the House Benesato standing before you, and it looks like. There we go. Right here. House Benesato is a 3-story building right at the center of Lucator. It was once the fortified camp of the original Benesato settlers. The settlement grew around the buildings. Gardens in a patio, a sprawling atrium, and heavy gates speak of ancient glory and splendor. But as you guys walk towards the gates, what you see is that a servant is washing away a cross that someone has painted in blood on the portal of House Benesato. And the cross that is used by the Nubians, by the Anabaptists, is, of course, the broken cross. It's a cross with a wheel that's missing a quarter to represent the imperfection of humanity in the Demiurge's world. You can see it quite easily here around the neck of this veteran Anabaptist. As you're walking up, or as Pace and Domingo, or Pache and Domingo approach the gates, the servant steps to the side and lets you all pass. It is dark inside. The curtains in the front of the high windows are almost drawn, and dust hangs in the air, illuminated by hanging oil lamps. Lamps. As you make your way inside, you have Pache and Domingo stop and relieve you of all of your weaponry, including the vocoder and the splayer, and assure you that it will be returned. Is anyone trying to smuggle a weapon in?
Out of respect for my patron, I will not cause trouble. Do they take the shield too?
Well, I'm picturing that you're. What did you actually bring with you? Because you've actually got enough for 4 arms.
Yeah. I guess I gotta.
Yeah.
Well, the scourge. I thought the scourge is that weapon that's belted though.
The Scourger is like a whip. It's a really long, like 3-meter long whip that gives an electric charge.
Okay.
They draw it, so like that's the way they describe it, but they draw it as like a pole arm with some claws on the end. So I'm going with the description they give of it.
Yeah, I would take like my rifle, spear. I guess I don't need to carry the shield, but I mean you could put the rifle, like shoulder the rifle, carry the, ceremonially.
Sure.
I carry it. I mean, just putting all the weapons out could be intimidating in and of itself.
For sure, yeah. So you turn everything over. The household guard who's taking all of this stuff is like, you would worry about tripping on his jaw because of just the assortment of different exotic cultures that he's being exposed to all of a sudden. But everything's...
Kev, does the top of the splayer come off the part with the thing, or is it?
It
not
can,
like...
but it doesn't have power then.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see if I could bring the part that would be the...
Of course, yeah. No, unfortunately...
The medical device.
No, it needs to be the splayer. It doesn't look like it, but the splayer is actually powered. And that's why you can change out the mollusk for something like... there's a light attachment you can get, and there's a couple other ones as well. So it is fairly modular. But... so once you've been relieved of your weapons and your other kind of signs of station, you're led inside, and what you find is that you're suddenly in this really long, and you get the sense that the place was designed to have this kind of effect where you're in a tight hallway, doors are thrown open, and you suddenly find yourself in this grand long dining room, and seated at a long cast iron table is Ennio and his lady love, Gala Lombardi. Let me show you what these guys look like. Ennio, guys, looks like this. That's Governor Ennio Benesato. And his lady love, Gala Lombardi, looks like this. And if you're curious about the tattoo, I think Karina, you would look right away too. You're not mistaken. That is a cross. That's the mark of the Lombardi. That is not a mark of the Anabaptist that is drawn incorrectly.
Do either of them have the 3 dots on the forehead?
You can't see if Ennio has that because of his headdress. And actually, Gala seems to be hit as well, too. Though, if her family, if she's anything like the rest of her family, like Vespucci Lombardi, the White Wolf of Bergamo, then sure as shit she will not have those dots on her forehead.
Yep.
So, as you walk in, there you can see that the table is actually full of meat and wine that has been poured already. Ennio steps and walks towards you and stops at each of you and shakes your hands. Thank you. Yeah, and he's going to end with you, Karina. And he says, you, Opiano, thank you so much. Interface, yes?
It is.
Thank you. Your companions, forgive me, I had not heard that you had others with you, but all are welcome. And he kind of looks you over. I'm going to see if he actually would know who to introduce himself to. I don't know if he would actually know how to distinguish between the different Africans. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
If he seems uncertain...
No, he does immediately. Oh, yeah. He turns and goes immediately to you at Awale and says, and you a Neo-Libyan, yes?
Indeed.
Are you from the far side of the Mediterranean, or are you from this side?
I was born on this side.
I see. And he reaches his hand out. Welcome to Lucator. We don't have many of your kind here. Not often, at least. Now, and I think he rolled well enough, so he'll know precisely where Atiano and Sokari fit in the hierarchy. So unless you introduce them to him, he's going to ignore them as your servants.
Well, I will introduce them as my companions.
Okay. Do you want to do that, or? Why are you trying to get this role-playing in my role-playing game, Madison?
All right,
Come on.
I was like, you want me to actually do it?
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Sokari, the Sith. Is that what you are, the Sith? I lost it already. So.
A Nubian.
Yeah.
A Nubian. Oh, sickle is what it says
Yeah.
up here.
Yeah.
A Nubian and the lion's paw or the lion's fist, Etiano.
Pleased to meet you.
I need to learn what they feed you. And he shakes both of your hands. And Karina, welcome. Devout Karina. All of you, please, have a seat. And he, Gala sort of keeps to herself. She doesn't introduce herself. And as you're sitting down, he says, This is my beautiful fiancée, Gala. And he sort of gestures to all of you, and she nods, and she says, welcome. And you all sit down. And he says, so I heard that you were... he's talking to you, Opiano. You and the chronicler. You were here asking about Abacus, trying to see him recently.
Yes, that's true.
Was that to help, perhaps? Is that what I've heard?
Yes.
Now,
We thought to offer assistance.
you don't happen to... You're not familiar with a Spitalian named Carmino Ferro, are you?
Yes, of course. He is my mentor.
Your mentor?
Yes.
Do you... And he kind of shares a look with Gala and looks back, and he says, by that do you mean that you studied with him at Vivico? Or
yes.
Does it portend to a more personal connection?
A bit of both.
Huh. Did you know that Ennio was the personal physician of my brother?
I did know.
And did you know that no word was sent to Ennio? I'm sorry, to Carmino.
Carmino.
Following his death.
I did. Yes, I have found that out.
In your specialty and your knowledge is far beyond my understanding, but I would have thought that you would want to have examined him for a murder. There's knowledge that you can gain from such examinations?
Absolutely. I would have expected, for sure, to have someone from... Sorry, what's our city or our hospital called?
Vivico.
I would have assumed someone from Vivico would have come, if not Carmino himself, with several men to do the investigation.
So you were not sent by Carmino then?
No, I was simply here on other business.
Just happy circumstance that Carmino's mentee was in Lucator.
Yes. I would have done the examination myself if given an opportunity.
And you think you could have yielded knowledge from this examination?
I think so.
Perhaps learned something of the identity of the murderer, yes?
Yes. Exactly that.
He spares a look over at Karina, and then over at you again, El Piano. Did you know? And he turns to, actually, he doesn't say that. He turns to Adewale, and he says, tell me, Adewale, I'm unfamiliar with the customs of your people. When a loved one or a family member passes, is it custom for your people to see them off? To see them a last time? Offer them an opportunity to be honored, and for those who remain, to say their goodbyes to the departed.
Aye, it's those who are left behind that need that closure. The departed have already left, right?
Indeed. And I certainly would not consider myself as devout a man as my brother. But Karina, would it not have been the normal custom to allow those of us in Lucator, to allow those who loved Altair's soul, to say goodbye to him, to see him off?
I think that would have been the normal procedure.
Well, Piano, did you know that Neva buried my brother, and I could not even say goodbye to him?
Yes, we did know that. I did not know that you did not say goodbye, but we knew that he was already buried.
With him now buried, we've not had an opportunity, we as a community, to see him gone, to end that relationship in a proper manner, and as such it leaves us with energy and with an unsettled feeling, and that unsettled feeling has led to a burning question that I'm sure you've heard asked on the streets. Who is it who killed my brother? I trust you've heard that.
Yes. That very question we've been pondering for the last 2 days, or 3 days.
And he gestures to Gala, a question I have been bedeviled with since hearing of his murder. Now, a name like Ulpiano. Are you from Pergar?
I believe I am.
I think you are.
Yes.
Yeah.
I am. Yes.
Then you know about the situation, the political situation outside of Pergar. So much chattering of tongues spent casting blame at various clans. But none of the clans, you would know this, none of the old clans are capable of this murder. They're too old and scattered and too weak to seize the opportunity of chaos that might come from Altair's murder. Most people believe that it was the Jahamadans, but I don't think so. After all, he turns to Gala. You wouldn't give shelter to murders in Bargamo, would you now, Gala? And Gala just simply smiles this sweet smile and says, "No, my love." And Ennio turns back to you. At the moment, however, the Anabaptists and their rumors are out to get me. With no other clear culprit in mind, they seek to pin my brother's murder on me. Can you imagine? A brother lost to a vicious murder, and then to shoulder the blame of such a thing? I've lived with these people my entire life, and to think that they think so little of me that I would murder my brother? And he kind of falls back in the chair. Gala gets up and walks over and puts her hand on his shoulder. They say I had Altair killed to replace him. I could never have done that, nor could one of my men. My brother was a leader. His word was as weighty as that of the elders the peaks are named after. And he turns to you. With everyone's mind turned towards either one of the old clans or me, and wish to place the knife in one of those hands, it means the hands of the actual murderer are free to pursue whatever ends that they may have been pursuing in connection with his death. As such, it's only an outsider who can truly look for those guilty hands. I implore you, hunt down my brother's killer, and I will have your names cast in silver and forever praise them. And if you help me, I will grant you safe passage in the whole region. And he looks at you, Adewale, and I'll pay you in dinars and share what good relations I have with the Helvetics with you. What say you?
I am with you, Enio, for certain. It does seem a heinous crime, and even worse for it to be foisted on a loyal brother.
Agreed. Thank you, Adewale. Thank you. I've heard your people are reliable and eager to find friends. I'm happy to find a friend in you. What say you, Ulpiano? What would your mentor wish of you?
I'm pleased to try and find the killer. We've already been working on the case.
And you, Chronicler?
Events in town are most unusual. I agree with your assessment.
So
I agree to help.
She nods. And what of you, Karina? I hear tell that you are sworn to, and he gestures towards Ulpiano, to this one. Does that remain the case in this task as well? Would you see the true murderer of your Baptist revealed and exposed?
We all search for truth in this world, and it seems that it's my duty to search in this way.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And he slumps back in his seat. Now, let's see here. Who has the highest perception score, guys?
I've just got a 2.
2? Okay.
Yeah, 2 as well.
Okay.
Perception plus instinct, or just perception?
Total score with both.
Oh.
2.
2?
3.
4.
3?
4.
4? So, interface?
I have a 4 also, yep.
You have 4 also. So, Atiano, Adewale, and interface. What you guys see, what you guys notice, is that while Ennio is speaking, and this is probably because, you know, each of you has your own reason to sort of be cagey in this kind of circumstance, you can see that Gala, while she is listening and responding to Ennio, she didn't say it much, well, really much of anything, but her attention is completely focused on you guys. The closest you could think of would be a cat with its eye focused on prey. as if she's trying to memorize everything about you. Then, have you anything to ask of Enio before you sup?
He mentioned the lesser and greater clans. I'm gonna ask him what he knows of the Romanos.
The Romanos. The Romanos are certainly a presence in Roma and to the south, and they travel sometime, but they are not welcome here. Nor have I seen them here. Why do you ask of the Romanos? Those troublemakers, they thankfully keep to the south. They don't find the ways of our locals to be to their likings. He kind of, Gala sort of chuckles at that.
Perhaps.
Why do you ask of the Romanos? Do you know something, Adewale?
We heard many things on the trek here, my good friend Enio, including the Romanos and the Jahamedans, but I do not know if there is any accuracy to them. That's only why I wish to ask you.
More clicking tongues. Then, if there's nothing, then these days have proven very, very long. And if you would excuse my rudeness, I would retire. But please, and he gestures to the food before him, enjoy the bounty of House Benesato and our continued courtesy in Commission House for you and all your guests. Thank you. Yes?
When I noticed Gala was sort of focusing on us,
Yep.
am I able to read her body language at all when like things come up, like mentioning the murder or anything else? How does she react with any emotion or
Inscrutable.
Okay.
Yeah. Even through your mask, she's pretty much staring directly at you. And doesn't flinch when you look at her.
Okay, and doesn't really react to any of the emotional news.
Mm-hmm. So if there's nothing else, Enio gets up, leaves you with his fiancée, and you have a wonderful banquet before you, the finest that some of you have ever had, and passable for a crow meal at Adewale. So, with that, guys, we will call it a session. So then, what I'm going to do is we'll dole out some XP here. And let's see here. 1, 2, 3. Okay, 4, 5. Six. Okay, so it's going to be 7 XP for today, guys.
Nice.
So if you need to add that to your character sheet, you just got to click on the cog to on the top right of the like information section up there, and that will give you an opportunity to add that in. Okay. So, for those listening at home, thank you so much for joining us for part 3 and the finale of our gaming marathon. However, perhaps not the end of our story in Degenesis. As always, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns regarding the system, the setting, the game, any of that stuff, please don't hesitate to leave a comment in the comment section of the video, and I will endeavor to reply in a timely fashion. You can also reach me by Twitter at Dungeon Musings, and by email. My email address is dungeonmusings@gmail.com. In addition, you can find a link in the description of the video to the Dungeon Musings Discord server, where you can find channels dedicated to this game, all the other campaigns we run on the channel, as well as a bunch of other channels dedicated to other things like finding a game, setting up streaming, and lots of pictures of our pets. In addition, if you did like this and you're not familiar with the game yet, I've included a link in the description of the video to the Degenesis.com website. And on there, you can get free copies of PDFs of all of the rule books that they have released to date. That includes the adventure we're playing, that includes the core rule book, it includes the newest supplement, Artifacts, which adds a bunch of cool optional rules. So if you do like the game and you want to check out the books for free, definitely check those out. In addition, there is, if you enjoy the session, be sure to click on subscribe and the bell icon to be notified when we're going to go live with our sessions. And in addition, on Sunday nights, I post to the community tab of the Dungeon Musings YouTube channel, and on Twitter and on the Dungeon Musings Discord, the schedule for the coming week. I didn't do that yet because I knew I already had this schedule, or this session scheduled, so I will be doing that later tonight. Last but not least, this has been a epic weekend of games for me. So I think I am tipping the scales close to 30 hours of games run this weekend, and I could not be happier. So for those who were able to join, especially on a Monday night as well too, I really, really appreciate you guys coming out. And what a, yeah, for Carl and for Hobbs, this is a new game with a very complicated setting in it too, so I really appreciate you guys jumping in with both feet and role-playing the hell out of your characters. So Arlen, Brent...
Before we say goodnight, though, actually, Kev, Carl, you should start us.
It is Kevin Madison's birthday, so I think we should all sign off before he signs off by singing happy birthday to him. We probably have horrible voices, but, and we can do that, right? It's legal. You're
it is. Yep.
Yeah.
It is now.
Right.
What do you call it? It's a open source or what do you call it? Public domain song now. So please fill your voices.
1, 2, 3. Happy birthday
to you.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you.
So
And I love it's all disjointed because we're from so many different.
So one of the cool things that Brent mentioned in the game earlier is that chroniclers carry around a device called a vocoder that weaponizes voices, and we just had.
Yeah.
Oh no,
Well,
I'm kidding. Thank you so much, guys. That's just.
We didn't stop watching.
Oh, that's so awesome, guys! Thank you so much. And you know what, guys? As a Brent knows this and Jeff knows this because I talk about it every time. The gaming marathon genuinely is my favorite holiday of the year. I love planning for it. I love running it for and traditionally it's been in person, and traditionally it's just been with my friends from Winnipeg. So one of the bright spots of having to do this by distance is it sucks that we didn't get to do it in person, but. We've been all playing together for a year and a half now. I am so grateful that you guys are friends of mine and that we get a chance to all game together. So I really appreciate you guys helping make the gaming marathon still go off in spite of the current crisis and in spite of the travel restrictions. So thank you so much, everyone. And those everyone, of course, will be Arlen, Brent, Jeff, Carl, George, and Hobbs. Thank you so much, guys. This was a lot of fun. So then this old man is got to get his pooch outside, and then it's so late. It's so late for me. So thank you again for those. Oh, and thanks, Medivir, for the happy birthday in the chat. For those, and I think Brian. Sorry, I didn't check in with chat. I saw Brian in there. I saw Mo. Hey, Mo. Thanks. Hey, Jason. Ultra Jason. We got Jason Weeb and Jason Hobbs. Thank you to everybody who has joined us for this this marathon session of Degenesis. I don't suspect. I know this isn't the last time you have seen this game at our table. So I will look forward to returning to the world of the post-Eschaton adventures of our heroes very soon. Until then, though, I will say that I hope that this finds everyone listening at home. If you are catching this during the either contemporaneous with a recording or around this time of the crisis, I hope that this finds you healthy, safe, and weathering the current crisis as well as can be expected. And until we see you again, happy gaming.